Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku, back with another fanfiction. This is the fifth part of What If Vigilante Deku Was Adopted by Aizawa. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku was becoming increasingly frustrated with himself as the weekend passed. He still couldn't speak, and his silence was becoming a nuisance not only to others, but to himself as well. He wanted to scream and cry and rant, but his mind refused to let him make a sound. By Monday, Izuku was of nerves from the pent-up emotions coiling around inside him. He arrived at class just as the bell rang. It was unusual for him to be this late, but he had struggled with himself to leave Aizawa-sensei. The man wasn't even that far away, but Izuku's thoughts turned dark every time he was more than 100 feet away. Maybe he should have tried convincing Aizawa to let him stick by his side for just a few more days. The gloomy atmosphere surrounding the boy was obvious as he took his seat. Not even Anzaisen snarked a nasty insult at him as he walked in. Once morning classes concluded, however, his luck with Anzaisen did not last. "Look everyone, the great hero returns. Not even a scratch on you either, is there, Midoriya?" Izuku flinched back, a sharp phantom pain echoing throughout his saint. "Leave him alone, Anzai," Shinsu grumbled. "I'm not scared of you, you brainwashing freak," Anzaisen hissed. "Now back off. You aren't Midoriya's bodyguard." Anger flared through Izuku at the insult towards Shinsu, and he opened his mouth to bite back, only to grow frustrated when no sound came out. "You've been pretty quiet all class. What? No epic tales on how you helped take down villains with 1A. Izuku glared as best he could at the boy. "Or maybe there is nothing to tell. The other students were probably burdened with trying to take care of you, weren't they?" Izuku shook his head defiantly. The only students who had to help him were Asui and Mainta. But he had proved his worth in that battle, taking down a fair amount of the villains. It was just unfortunate that he had been stuck with the one villain that shot venomous spines out of his body. No, of course not. The quirkless kid probably had to stay with Aizawa-sensei, correct? I heard he got pretty injured. Can't even see his face for all the bandages. You do seem to be the type to get in the way." At this, Izuku deflated. It had been his fault Aizawa-sensei got hurt. Not for the reasons Anzaisen was spouting, but he was responsible. It hurt to have that thrown in his face. "I said to back off," Shinsu said, voice rising as he stood from his chair. The buff, strength enhancement quirk kid Gotozen stepped forward. "What are you going to do about it?" he asked, his voice surprisingly high. Shinsu glared, looking back at Izuku for a moment before offering his hand. Izuku looked at it for all of 2 seconds before taking it and holding firmly as Shinsu started to march him from the room. "Look, just another student saving your ass, Midoriya." Anzaisen cackled after them. Underscore 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 underscore. Shinsu heavily wished that he was stronger than he currently was so that he could have socked Goto in the face. It would have felt so much better than simply removing himself and Midoriya from the situation. But it had been barely a week since he had seriously started training his body. Once he had pulled Midoriya a safe distance away. He let go of the hand and turned to look at him. "Are you okay?" Shinsu asked, only slightly stuttering over the words. Midoriya shrugged his shoulders before nodding once. Shinsu grimaced at the nonverbal reply before something CLC'd in his mind. Midoriya hadn't spoken at all today, not even when Anzai was being an ass. Maybe he couldn't talk right now. Midoriya seemed to have noticed the pained expression and frantically waved his hands in the air. "Sign language? I don't know sign language, Midoriya," Shinsu said softly. The green-eyed boy blushed before pulling out a notebook and turning to a blank page. He scribbled for a while before handing it over. "I'm sorry. I can't talk. I don't know why it just happens sometimes. I'm sorry." Shinsu hummed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Some of the kids at home do that too." It's called selective mutism or something, I think. Midoriya smiled wide and nodded. Want to grab lunch? Midoriya nodded again and followed Shinsu to the back entrance of the cafeteria. Lunch Rush had already prepared their trays and had left them by the door. Shinsu thanked the busy man before exiting. We should sit somewhere else. I have a feeling Anzai is still scouting out the classroom. Midoriya nodded again and tilted his head in a follow-me sort of manner before heading in the opposite direction of the classroom. Once Midoriya had stopped, the two stood before the teacher's lounge door. Shinsu shifted uncomfortably. Midoriya noticed and smiled slightly before knocking once and entering slowly. Most of the teachers sat at their desks, eating their own lunches. Izuku, Yamada-sensei cheered before noticing Shinsu. His grin faded slightly, and worry clouded his features. Is something wrong? Midoriya shook his head and set down his tray so he could sign to the room of teachers. The flurry of motions put Shinsu on edge a bit as he stood in the door of the teacher's lounge. Aizawa-sensei was, indeed, covered in bandages and seemed peeved at the student presence in the room. The man eyed Shinsu, though he couldn't read the expression on his face due to the wrappings. When Midoriya's hands stilled, Yamada-sensei spoke. Of course you can eat lunch in here, just for today though. He added on the last part quickly at a glance from Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa-sensei seemed to frown, glancing back at Shinsu. He seemed to be thinking deeply. Are you leaving anything out, brat? He asked of Midoriya. The boy blushed and shrugged his shoulders. Aizawa-sensei grit his teeth at this response and turned to Shinsu. I'm assuming you don't know sign by your confusion. Yais, sensei. Shinsu said, voice slightly higher than normal. This was an extremely uncomfortable situation. Then why do you think Midoriya has taken you here to eat? Shinsu opened his mouth, but closed it at the quick shake of his classmate's head. Shinsu paused while he thought through his options. He easily slipped into his lies as he spoke, body relaxing, face going neutral. He wrote that he wanted a change of scenery. But I wasn't really expecting to end up here, to be honest. Shinsu smirked, eyes gliding over to Midoriya who had relaxed some. Is that so? Aizawa-sensei asked. Shinsu nodded casually, an eyebrow quirking as he smirked at the other student. You know, most people don't eat with their school professors, Midoriya. When you mentioned a change of scenery, I thought you meant eating outside or something. Midoriya smiled sheepishly. Please excuse our intrusion. Shinsu bowed. I know President Mixensei agreed to let us stay, but I understand if you would prefer us to leave. Midoriya flinched, taking a hesitant step closer to Aizawa-sensei. He motioned something with his hands again that had the man sigh. No, it's fine. He grumbled out, looking at Midoriya even as he spoke to Shinsu. One day is fine. Just make sure the brat apologizes for making you feel awkward. Midoriya had grinned widely before his eyes widened, and he looked at Shinsu in worry. It didn't seem like Midoriya even guessed that the situation might be strange and put his classmate on edge. After a beat of silence, Midoriya grabbed his tray back up and went to sit in the corner of the room where an empty table was placed. Beside it sat a student's desk, and Shinsu watched as Midoriya mulled over which one to sit at. Scratching his ear in unease, Shinsu went over and sat at the table with Midoriya, making sure to keep his back to the wall in case this was some sort of test on the teacher's part. Midoriya sat beside him, at the table as well. He took out a notepad and scribbled before sliding it over. The teachers had begun chatting amongst themselves once more, seemingly ignoring the two students. I'm so sorry. I didn't even think that this might make you uncomfortable. Shinsu read the words as he took a bite of his warm soba. Are you with the teachers a lot? You've always seemed close to them, but this is more than I had thought. Shinsu asked, voice kept as low as possible. Midoriya shifted in his chair uncomfortably as he took the notebook back. I had to take a lot of extra classes with them to be accepted into UA. Why? Shinsu asked, actually surprised. Midoriya grinned at him and scribbled some more. Did you forget that I'm quirkless, or are you just feigning stupid? Shinsu blushed lightly and glared at the other boy. He opted not to answer that question. The two ate in silence for a while, or Shinsu ate. Midoriya picked at his food, opting to swirl the noodles around more than eat it. You should eat. Even if you only have support course today, you still need the energy. Shinsu deadpanned. Midoriya froze, and the chatter among the adults in the room lessened. Shinsu scanned the room quickly, but none of the teachers were outright staring, except for Aizawa Sensei, who was known for being a strong ass when it came to his hero course students' health. Ironic considering he was working in his current condition. Midoriya looked down at his food with disdain as he swirled the soba with his chopsticks again. Shinsu rolled his eyes. I know you like it. You ate it last week. Food is food, Midoriya. Just eat it. The challenge that met his eyes piqued Shinsu's curiosity, but the purple-haired boy just smirked. Or don't eat, and let me kick your ass in training after school. The boy said this tentatively, not knowing if that offer was even still available right now. Midoriya snorted at the idea, though, and his eyes lightened as he took a few bites of food before moving to scribble something in his notebook. You couldn't beat me, even if I was starving to death. I'd rather not take you up on that offer. You're already tiny enough. You'd look stupid just being skin and bone. The teacher chatter dies down again, and Shinsu looked up sharply to find them purposefully avoiding his gaze. Midoriya smiled slightly, writing more down in his notebook. I can still kick your ass, even if I look stupid. But I'll eat. I am eating. Okay? Shinsu nodded after reading the note and went back to his own food, now mostly gone. Shinsu made sure that Midoriya finished most of his food before speaking again, keeping his voice as low as possible. So we are definitely getting together after school, he asked. Why not? Midoriya wrote. Well, don't we need a teacher? Midoriya thought for a moment, leaning back in his seat. He turned slightly and waved a hand before signing in Aizawa Sensei and Yamada Sensei's direction. Aizawa Sensei nodded once before turning back to the computer, where he was speaking into a microphone. He said he would still watch us. I think Yamada Sensei might be there too, to watch Aizawa Sensei. Shinsu grinned slightly. What a weird dynamic. Are we just doing physical training, then? Midoriya looked at him confused. My quirk doesn't really work unless the other person talks back, Midoriya. Midoriya's eyes blew wide, and he nervously scratched something into his book. I'm so sorry. I didn't even think about that. Is it okay? Maybe by Thursday we can practice with your quirk. Are you angry? Shinsu's grin widened as he read the words. It's fine. I'm not mad, idiot. Underscore 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 support course went much better than the morning courses had, now that Izuku had training to look forward to. Hatsumesen was going wild in the class after having had an entire week without US tools to work with. Izuku had a difficult time adapting to her energy today and had told her as much through a note. The girl was very careful not to step over into Izuku's space after that, of which the boy was grateful. After the Usji, Izuku had come up with multiple possible improvements for his suit and set to work on creating blueprints for those. Between working on the blueprints, he set to work creating his personally created version of his shoes so that he could use them during the sports festival. Underscore 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 underscore. When the bell rang for the end of the day, Shinsu packed up quickly and headed down towards Gym 16. Aizawa Sensei, Yamada Sensei, and Midoriya were already waiting by the time Shinsu walked in. Shinsu was nervous, though he was doing his best to hide it. It was a little terrifying to have almost one-on-one training. Shinsu tried to think of how he'd managed to luck out on this. Where do the two of you want to start? Aizawa Sensei asked, sounding bored. Izuku shrugged his shoulders, glancing over at Shinsu, who had done the same. Neither really knew what the other was even capable of, so how would they know where to start? Aizawa Sensei sighed and motioned for them to go to a sparring mat. I've seen Midoriya fight plenty, but I've only watched you in a single class. Shinsu, how about the two of you spar, to give an idea of ability levels? For the first round, go all out. Same rules as in class. No quirk. Shinsu. Both boys nod and look to one another, getting ready. 3, 2, 1, start. Aizawa-sensei called. Shinsu didn't even see Midoriya move before he was on the ground, breath knocked out of him. What the hell? Shinsu sat up slowly, rubbing the back of his head. A hand appeared in his line of vision and Shinsu looked up to find Midoriya, offering to help him stand. Shinsu took the offered hand without a second thought. The boy smiled at him sheepishly, signing something that Shinsu couldn't understand. Let's do that again, Aizawa-sensei said. Both got into place again, Shinsu slightly more tense than last time. 3, 2, 1, start. Shinsu was able to catch Midoriya's movement to the right for a split second before losing track of him. He couldn't even block when he felt the kick to his side that knocked him out of bounds and to the floor. How had he done that? Shinsu could have sworn he was going right. How did the attack land from the left? Had Midoriya faked him out? Again. Aizawa-sensei called. Shinsu grit his teeth as Midoriya helped him up again, and the two got back in place. At the call of start, Shinsu pivoted on his foot as Midoriya moved. He was able to track the other boy much better this time. The other boy ducked to the side, no trick this time. As soon as he was level with Shinsu's body, his arm moved out, cutting wide through the air. But then, Shinsu was on the ground again, his feet having been swept out from under him. A distraction? Midoriya smirked as he helped Shinsu up this time. Shinsu glared at him, but got right back into place before Aizawa could even say anything. Midoriya, I told you to go full out. Don't cut your speed again, brat. What? Shinsu asked. That wasn't your fastest? Midoriya signed something again, a CCKY smile falling on his lips. Yamada-sensei laughed and Shinsu looked to the teacher to interpret for him. Yamada-sensei grinned. The little listener basically said if you can see him, he's going slow. At your level, anyway. Now that is plus ultra sparring, Yamada-sensei yelled, slightly louder than necessary. Shinsu eyed Midoriya warily now. The boy was bouncing on the S of his feet, curling a hand in his hair idly. Again. All out, Midoriya. The green eyes rolled before settling on Shinsu once more. The gaze sent a shiver down his spine this time. Shinsu was on the ground faster than any previous time. His hands were locked behind his back and his face was shoved into the mat. After 5 seconds, the smaller kid let go and offered another hand. Shinsu didn't take it that time, standing on his own, determination settling into his shoulder. One hit. He just wanted one hit. On and on the sparring went. Shinsu became frustrated as he was continuously thrown into the ground. After the 10th time, Shinsu rolled when he fell into the ground and jumped back towards Midoriya as quickly as he could, only to be redirected. Shinsu didn't let up though and turned back. He couldn't keep track of his classmate, but he had a general idea of where he was at. He just needed to stay inside the white lines. Just needed. Shinsu, you're out. What? No, I'm not, Shinsu said, automatically looking down to find that he was, in fact, out of bounds. TCH, he said, holding back the curse that was currently filtering through his head. Midoriya signed something and Yamada-sensei opened his mouth to interpret, but Shinsu cut him off. I don't want to know what he said. Shinsu snapped. I already have an idea. I don't need it clarified. Midoriya grinned at him again as Shinsu took up his stance. Midoriya, half the speed, Aizawa-sensei said. Shinsu looked up surprised. No, I don't need that. I'm fine, he said hurriedly. I'm done testing your endurance. Now I need to see if you even have a semblance of skill. Don't question me. Aizawa-sensei drawled back. Endurance? He was testing endurance. Now it was skill. But Shinsu didn't really have any skill. 3, 2, 1, start. It was significantly easier to track Midoriya's movements this time. He moved to Shinsu's left for a second before darting in the opposite direction, ducking low under his line of sight. Shinsu took a step back, blocking his most vulnerable area, the torso, only to feel a kick to his side. Shinsu still couldn't quite keep track. Again and again, they did this. Shinsu actually managed to fight back some now, but none of his hits landed. Shinsu was just about at his limit when he noticed. Midoriya's eyes did not match what his feet were doing like most people's did. They redirected his line of sight, making Shinsu think the boy would move in one direction when he really moved in another. "Take a break," Aizawa-sensei said, and Shinsu hurried to stop him. "Just one more, please, sensei," he said quickly, wiping sweat off his brow. Aizawa-sensei quirked a brow at him, but nodded. This time, Shinsu refused to meet Midoriya's gaze, eyes trained on his center of gravity. He blocked the first hit on purpose this time. Then he blocked the second. An arm swung wide again, a distraction, and Shinsu stopped the hidden attack from the other arm. A small glance up found Midoriya to be genuinely smiling, though the kid moved in for another attack. Shinsu was still on the defense the entire time before finally being backed out of bounds. But he hadn't fallen on his ass, at least. "You figured it out," Aizawa-sensei said, not sounding as monotone this time. "High praise, little listener," Yamada-sensei cheered. Aizawa-sensei elbowed him in the ribs. "Now take a break," Aizawa-sensei said more firmly. Midoriya's entire body relaxed at the call for break, and he practically pranced over to his bright yellow bag, pulling out a water bottle and his notebook. Shinsu grabbed a bottle as well and sat heavily by the wall. Midoriya walked over to him, suddenly looking nervous. He held out his book for Shinsu to read. "Are you angry at me for not letting you win?" Shinsu looked up shocked. "Of course not," he said. "I'm a little frustrated at myself, but I'm not upset with you at all. In fact, I'm a little relieved you are actually good. Now I know that if you ever fight Anzai, he will have nothing to say." Midoriya hummed a little and sat beside Shinsu, opening a different notebook to a page near the end. At the top was Shinsu's name, followed by a few stats. The freckled boy started writing in more stats, mostly on physical endurance, and Shinsu grimaced at the scores the boy wrote down. "You don't have to rub it in my face though, Midoriya." Shinsu laughed a little, a slight bitterness in his tone. "I know I suck." Midoriya turned to the other book and scribbled something before pressing it into Shinsu's hands. "Yeah, you suck. But I'm writing this down because it's important. I do it for everyone I find interesting. It helps my analysis. As you get better, I'll update it." "Right," Shinsu said slowly. Midoriya switched books with him to write more. Shinsu looked down to find a page on the hero Kamui Woods. It was filled out in much the same way Shinsu's was, though more developed, and the stats were higher. Switching back again, Shinsu looked down at what had been written. "I'm more excited for your quirk. Shame we can't practice today. I bet you could do so much with it. You shouldn't rely on a quirk, but yours would be super helpful in a variety of settings. Once you train your body, you will be super powerful." "Do you have a page on yourself?" Shinsu asked, looking back at the notebook in Midoriya's hand. The other boy looked at him nervously before flipping to the front of the book, pushing it over. Midoriya's page on himself was pitiful. Shinsu almost laughed when he looked at it. "All you have is your name, birthday, and basic stats. The stats aren't even up to date." Midoriya blushed, writing something quickly. "It's strange to write about myself." "Then give me your pencil," Shinsu said, holding out a hand. Midoriya hesitated before handing it over. Shinsu erased the pathetic stats and compared his own with Kamui Woods to make a reasonable number up to write in. He didn't really understand how Midoriya determined what numbers to put down, so he mostly made them up within reason of the 2 pages he had seen. At the end of the page, Shinsu wrote in some things he had noticed about Midoriya, including his intelligence, adaptability, and the skills he had seen. It was sloppy compared to Midoriya's work, and it probably looked stupid in comparison to the other pages. But Shinsu handed it back feeling accomplished. "Break's over, let's go." Aizawa-sensei's voice rang out. Shinsu almost groaned as he stood, but bit his lip to not make any sound. He went back to the mat with Midoriya, but stopped when he noticed Aizawa-sensei walking towards them. "Go grab a notebook, brat," Aizawa-sensei said to Midoriya. "We are doing quirk training, and you are leading the session." underscore 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 underscore. What do you mean? I have to respond for Shinsu's quirk to use. Izuku signed, confused. And what do you mean, lead the session? At the same time that Izuku was signing, Shinsu looked as if he also wanted to ask questions, but was holding himself back. Grab your little book, brat, unless you want a lesson in on-the-spot memorization, Aizawa said. Izuku stood up immediately and went back over to his bag and just grabbed the whole thing. He didn't know what exactly was happening, so he didn't know which notebook he would need. By the time he got back, Aizawa-sensei, Yamade-sensei, and Shinsu were all sitting in a small group. Underscore 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 Aizawa sighed as he looked at the two boys. Yamada was grinning like an idiot beside him. How much practice have you had with your quirk, Shinsu? Aizawa asked. The boy tensed slightly and looked at Aizawa nervously. And not much. I haven't been allowed. How did your elementary level quirk training turn out? Shinsu shifted uncomfortably. It didn't really happen. The teacher quit after the first 2 sessions. After that, the only guidance was scoldings on having to hold it back. The violet eyes evaded his own. They? What? Yamada asked. They taught you to turn it off. No. They just yelled when I used it on accident. I mostly figured out how to not slip up after that. Unless you are emotional, Aizawa said. Shinsu blushed lightly, still avoiding the teacher's gazes. Yamada grumbled under his breath. He had also simply been told to just not use his quirk growing up. What do you know about it? What have you been able to explore on your own? Shinsu hesitated, glancing over at the problem child for support. The kid simply shrugged and nodded a head towards Aizawa. It's safe, the green-eyed boy seemed to tell the other. It's activated when someone answers one of my questions. Most of the time, I have a solid control over it. But every now and then, the switch FLCKS when I don't mean it to. Aizawa and Yamada nodded. They both understood the switch analogy, as their own quirks worked in similar ways. You can turn it off at will. Yeah. I have the most practice doing that part on purpose, so it's the easiest part. Anything else? Limitations. Duration. Type of command. I've never been able to test the duration, and I've never really given anything but basic commands. When I was little, I managed to have my mom cook me sweets for dinner, instead of actual food. I only got caught because I got sick later. He broke off in a murmur. Izuku furrowed his brows. Boo, as soon as the sound left his mouth, his entire body froze up, mouth clenching shut. The boy seemed at war with himself as he opened his mouth again, but ultimately just took out a piece of paper and wrote something down, placing the paper in the middle of the haphazard circle the four made. Why wouldn't she have caught you the moment you released her? I remembered everything last time. You were just delaying the inevitable, right? No. I told her to forget. The brainwashing lasted after the fact, Izuku signed while Yamada interpreted. Can you make someone forget anything you want? What about their names? Who they are? Can you make them not be afraid? Can you? Aizawa held up a hand to stop the multitude of questions. I think I can only make them forget the things they do while being brainwashed. Izuku seemed to itch to ask more questions, but held himself back. Is there another way to get the person out of your control? Aizawa asked. Oh, yeah. You can shock them out of it with a strong enough push or jolt. All right. Here is what we are going to do. Aizawa started. Shinsu, you are going to use your quirk on Yamada. And, eventually, me, Midoriya, take notes. You are going to be in charge of guiding what he does. What he asks. Answer any questions, explore what he can do. Any complaints. Izuku shook his head, a light in his eyes. Shinsu looked more wary. You seriously want me to use my quirk on a teacher? A non-question. Yes. You won't get upset. Another non-quesiten. No. Even if you don't like it, I won't be in trouble. Yet another non-question. Are you refusing to ask questions because you fear your control is lacking now? Shinsu jumped in his place and shook his head. And I know, it's just a habit. Aizawa hummed. Okay, are we going to start this party or not? Yamada said loudly. I've been patient too long. Let's sate everyone's curiosity and get going. Begin when you want. On Yamada first. Shinsu looked uncertain still and confused as to what to do when a notebook was slid over to him. Aizawa read the upside-down words to himself. Don't tell him to do anything at first. Okay, Shinsu turned to Yamada and opened his mouth, only hesitating for a moment before asking, Are you ready to start, sensei? Yay! The screech cut off much sooner than it normally would. Izuku walked Shinsu to the gate of UA after practice before pausing. He couldn't exit the gates without a teacher. Midoriya-kun. A voice called from behind. Izuku turned sharply at the voice, a mixture of panic and relief filtering through him. Nezu stood not far away. Did he think Izuku was going to leave? Was Izuku about to be scolded? Would Nezu let on that Izuku couldn't leave UA grounds? I need to speak to you a moment. You live nearby, yes. No train to miss. Izuku shook his head. Perfect. Follow me then. Have a good evening, Shinsu-kun. Nezu said in a chirpy tone. Shinsu looked at Izuku, an eyebrow raised in interest. Izuku only shrugged. I can wait. Shinsu offered. No need, Shinsu-kun. Nezu grinned. It may be a while. I need to speak about Midoriya-kun's schedule, and it always takes at least an hour. Izuku actually deflated at the thought. If Nezu did want to talk about his schedule, it would be a long meeting. Shinsu paused and smiled wryly. Never mind. My guardians would kill me if I was that late. So I'll see you tomorrow. Izuku nodded and smiled, turning and following Nezu, parting ways with Shinsu. Underscore 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 underscore. I hope it didn't cross your mind to leave. Nezu said as they walked back towards the main building. No, I wouldn't. Izuku sighed, stumbling slightly in his motions. I'll head back to my room. I have homework. No, I need to speak with you. Nezu said, the cheer in his voice lessening. It put Izuku on edge. No worries, Aizawa will be there too, Nezu said, false cheer back in place. That affirmation did not ease the anxiety now coiling in Izuku's gut. Izuku stumbled slightly, anxiety skyrocketing, even more when Nezu didn't walk straight into the office. Instead, he knocked on his own office door. Izuku nearly ran right then. When the door opened, he couldn't. Izuku was frozen in place at the sight of his social worker, Mochizuki-san. I apologize for the wait, Mochizuki-san. Midoriya-kun was saying goodbye to a friend. The emphasis on the last word jolted Izuku out of his head, and he tentatively took a step forward. Aizawa-sensei was in the room, face still covered in bandages, but clearly eyeing the woman sitting in the chair in front of Nezu's desk. That is quite all right, Mochizuki-san said softly. I'm so happy to hear you are making friends, Midoriya-kun, she said in greeting to Izuku. Izuku couldn't move past the doorway. He didn't want to move past the doorway. Would you like to sit, Midoriya-kun? Mochizuki-san asked kindly. Izuku shook his head once, sharply. Eyes darting from her to Nezu to Aizawa. What was happening? Why was she here? Was she about to take him away? Again? Izuku's ch-sin went cold, as if he were breathing in ice water. Why is she here? He signed to no one in particular. Mochizuki-san looked at him confused. She didn't know JSL like the other two in the room. Perhaps, Nezu said from his place at his desk. You can now tell us why you are here. He finished. Mochizuki-san looked nervous as she looked around the room. Her eyes finally landed on Izuku. A wellness check of sorts. In person. I had thought we agreed to telephone checks until the year mark. Nezu said, voice happy, but holding a dangerous edge. I had thought we agreed it would be best for Midoriya-kun's mental health. Mochizuki-san was quiet for a moment before she spoke again. In light of last week's events, it was deemed prudent to check on him in person. Why wait so long? The woman once again froze at the new voice. Aizawa-sensei had spoken. I only go where they tell me to. Mochizuki-san said, voice tense. At that, she turned her full body towards Izuku. He still hadn't moved from his spot by the door. How are you? Fine. He signed sharply. Nezu interpreted this time. I need a verbal response, she said, a small smile on her face. Just to make sure that it is coming from you. The woman glanced at the two men in the room. If Izuku hadn't been so terrified at what was happening, he would have rolled his eyes. I can't. Can't? Why not? She asked, eyes narrowing at him. Izuku shrugged in response. She looked around again before sighing. I think it would be best if I spoke with Midoriya-kun alone, she stated. Izuku shook his head, but the woman held firm. After 5 minutes of the same request, Nezu finally agreed and gave the woman 5 minutes to speak with Izuku alone. Izuku grasped onto Aizawa-sensei's shirt before he completely exited the door. What if I say something wrong? There aren't any wrong answers, kid. We will handle anything that happens after. Aizawa promised in a whisper. Once the two were alone, Izuku took out some notebook paper and a pencil as he had done with Shinsu less than 2 hours previous. Why aren't you speaking? Did something happen? I'm fine. You know I can't talk sometimes. The brown-haired woman sighed. Only when you are anxious about something, Midoriya-kun. Izuku didn't write anything in response. Of course he was anxious. The school had been attacked. Aizawa-sensei had been hurt. Things, people, everything was messy right now. To top it off, she had come and made him even more nervous. How are your studies? I'm doing well. Your hero training? I'm sore most days, but I'm keeping up with the rest of the class. Izuku wrote, completely avoiding the incident. Mochizuki-san did not seem inclined to do so, however. The attack. You were there. You got seriously injured, she said. I'm fine. The woman frowned at him. You aren't talking, she stated again. Izuku shifted uncomfortably. I am. Just not the way you want. Mochizuki-san sighed once more, standing from her chair. I know you don't really trust me, Midoriya-kun, but I am on your side. Why are you here? The woman grimaced. The higher-ups have been talking since the incident, she said, leveling her words. They don't feel comfortable with your current schedule. Izuku tensed more, Deku fully sliding into place for the first time in a few days. They, and I, for that matter, don't think the hero course is safe for you. Deku growled low in his throat, hand finding the door. We don't think that Yua is safe for you. You can't take me away. I don't understand, Midoriya-kun. You take me away from here, and you'll ruin everything. I need you to write it down. I don't know JSL. Deku slammed a hand against the door in frustration. In less than a second it had opened, and Nezu had appeared in the room again, ducking under Deku's outstretched arm. She's trying to take me away. She's going to make me leave. Deku signed frantically once he spotted Aizawa-sensei behind him. Midoriya-kun. Try to understand it from the state's perspective. It was already unusual to allow you into Yua in the first place. As a ward of the state, your safety lies in our hands. The government can go FCK itself. Izuku signed. Nezu interpreted using slightly kinder language, though only slightly. They don't know me. Who even are these strangers that are trying to decide this for me? They aren't strangers. They are a panel of 20 trained child psychologists, case workers, government officials. They don't know me. I don't know them. Strangers. They are looking out for your best interest. They are looking to save face with the public. Silence settled over the room. Deku's scent was rising and falling harshly. I will speak with your higher-ups on the subject. For now. I have a signed letter from the Secretary of the State. Midoriya-kun is leaving tonight. If you wish to fight against the decision, you are welcome to. But Midoriya-kun is to be removed from UA custody immediately. Mochizuki-san said, voice still soft. She handed the form over to Nezu, whose ears dropped back as he read it over. You can't just take him so suddenly. He has school. He has made a home here. Where will you even place him? Aizawa seethed. We have everything figured out. That is the main reason it took so long for me to come. The woman said, eyes looking at Aizawa-sensei sharply. We didn't want a chance UA spiriting him off, so the state took drastic measures. Deku stood stock still as he digested the information. The moment his eyes met with Nezu's regretful gaze, he ran. Underscore 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 Izuku had nowhere to go. He still couldn't leave UA grounds with the cuffs still on, so he went to his safe place. His room. A handful of teachers were in the lounge, but Izuku didn't take the time to greet them. Halfway up the steps, he scooped up Chado and locked himself in his room as best he could. The door didn't actually lock, so he had simply slammed it closed. The damn thing also opened outwards, so barricading it wouldn't do anything either. Izuku took all the blankets off his bed and nabbed the Mitoragi off his side table and hid himself inside the bathroom with the kitten and stuffed bunny. The tears fell hot and heavy down his face as he curled up into a... She couldn't take him away. She couldn't. He was just getting used to things. He had a place. He had finally made friends. Izuku stayed in that place for a long, while over an hour, he would later realize when a soft knock hit the outside door. When no one answered, the door opened. Then another knock on the bathroom door. Aizawa opened the door carefully, struggling with the handle due to his cast-laden arms. Kid, he said, quietly, sadly. Izuku shook his head, covering his ears. Kid, you have to go. If you don't do so willingly, the police will get involved. Izuku shook his head again, closing his eyes as if that would make the world disappear. Nezu's already working on overturning this decision. We will have you back as soon as possible. Izuku shook as he lowered his hands so he could communicate. I didn't do anything wrong this time. Why are they sending me away? I can't help being quirkless. Why won't they just let it go? I don't? No. I don't want to leave. I don't want to. I know. You promised you wouldn't disappear. I told you something would happen. I told you I'm cursed to not be happy. Aizawa sighed slightly, looking down at the ground, fists clenched tightly. We will figure something out. I can ride with you if you want. At least to your first stop. They will be taking you to a secure location after that. I'll just run. I'll just come back here. No, Izuku. You can't do that. Let Nezu figure something out. Give him a chance before you get yourself into more trouble. Izuku shrunk back at the words, new tears spilling from his eyes again. Let's get your things. Izuku nodded once, standing slowly. It felt as if the entire world were off kilter. A black trash bag was on his bed already. Izuku shrank back from it, biting his lip to not cry. He hated the trash bags. It was what was used when you moved between homes. Whatever you could fit. No more. Izuku shook as he took out his school books from the yellow backpack. He wouldn't need those if he didn't attend UA. He replaced the items with the rest of his analysis books and his favorite novel from the obnoxious reading list he had been given. He chose 5 t-shirts and 2 pairs of jeans and laid them on the bed. He grabbed the new Mitoragi hoodie that Yamada-sensei had bought to replace the one that the hand villain had destroyed. He left anything that would be seen as a weapon, knowing the bag would be looked through thoroughly before he left. He knew better than to take the pictures he had accumulated with him. New fosters usually didn't like reminders of past homes. This would be a new adventure. No need to live in the past. When Izuku finally touched the black bag to place his stuff in, Chado dove for the plastic, playing with it like a toy. She purred happily when Izuku gently moved her off with a small pat to the head. He wouldn't be able to take her either. No pet transfers. Unless they were guide dogs or something similar. Izuku made sure his backpack fit in the black bag as well before placing it over his shoulders. How they burned right now. Then, he headed down the stairs, finding Mochizuki-san standing there looking downtrodden. He was angry at the woman. But he knew she didn't care for how this was going either. She may agree about his safety, but she didn't want him to leave Yua. Just the hero course. Yet, she had to follow orders. I need to check the bags, Midoriya-san. Is there a place? Izuku bypassed her into the sitting room and sat his 2 bags on the table. Removing the backpack and showing the woman that it did indeed fit in the garbage bag as well. What's happening? Kame-sensei asked when she noticed the bags. Who are you? Snipe-sensei asked when he noticed Mochizuki-san. Cemento-sensei looked between Izuku and the woman and seemed to figure it out pretty quickly, his usually narrow eyes widening. Why? Why are you taking him? I'm sure Nezu will explain everything. She mumbled as she looked through each piece of clothing. They are taking him away for safety. Aizawa-sensei growled. The other teachers were on their feet in seconds. Izuku took the opportunity to sit and hug Chato. What? You can't just take Izuku away, Kame-sensei yelled at the woman. Mochizuki-san stood up, looking exhausted. She had probably already fought with Aizawa-sensei over this. The brown-haired woman squared her shoulders against the room of heroes, prepared for another verbal assault. All the while, Yamada-sensei sat in awed silence, staring at Aizawa-sensei and then at Izuku. He walked over slowly, sure-footed, and knelt before Izuku. It's gonna be all right, little listener, he said, voice soft. Izuku stared at him, not reacting. You've done it before, yeah? Izuku nodded his head. It's no different. Same old process, I'm sure. They even got the trash bag and everything. Tears filled Izuku's eyes as he looked at Yamada-sensei. He didn't want to go. Next is going to be the awkward car ride to the office. Izuku nodded. Offices are closed, so police station instead. He whispered, speaking for the first time since the hospital. The staff quieted down at his voice and focused on his and Yamada-sensei's conversation. Yep. They'll recheck your stuff. Throw out anything dangerous or unreasonable. No food. Yamada nodded. They'll check your pockets. No knives or other sharp objects, he said, remembering the rules. Then they'll take your picture. Try to smile. It looks nicer in your government profile if this home doesn't work out either, Izuku said, tears falling down his cheeks. Then another awkward car ride. A secure location this time. Yamada nodded. That means it'll be out in the middle of nowhere. A long trek. Try to sleep on the way. The parents will greet us at the door. They always did when I was in the system, too. Yamada chuckled lowly. I'll have 36 hours to settle in if they are strict. Up to a week if they aren't. Then the rules. Then the rules. Yamada nodded. You know the play-by-play, kiddo. It won't be as strong as the first time was. It's always bad, but never like the first. Yamada smiled weakly at him, and Izuku leaned forward, hugging him closely as his tears slowly dried. No more crying. They might not like it, he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Yamada squeezed him tighter before letting go, and standing in one fluid motion. You had better check on these people like you are supposed to, he hissed. If they hurt him, I will. They've been screened thoroughly, she promised as she handed Izuku his backpack. You never know what people are like behind closed doors, Yamada-sensei said, his tone completely serious as he spoke. A finger ran along a scar on his jaw as he spoke. Aizawa-sensei jolted slightly at his words and action. It's getting late. Let's go, Midoriya-kun, Mochizuki-san said, opting not to answer Yamada-sensei's statement. Izuku walked out of the teacher dorms, not chancing a look back. That always made it stronger to leave. The Basho couple were both government officials. The woman, Basho Rina, was a special forces officer that protected high-end officials. Her husband, Basho Hayat, worked in the civilian architectural department of the state. Both had degrees in child development and had raised 2 foster kids already. Thus, they were deemed to be suitable for Midoriya to stay with. The couple were friendly, but it was clear they would be strict. When Izuku walked in, it was 22 o'clock, and they had sent him to bed immediately. The room was okay. It was carpeted with tan walls. A bed, desk, and nightstand filled the room. A single window was centered on a wall. The black trash bag sat by the wall for now, waiting to be unpacked. Izuku now lay on the bed, slightly numb. Everything had changed so quickly and his mind was still trying to keep up. He wanted to go back. He wanted Chato to lay in his CH-sec. He wanted Kayame-sensei to check on him at midnight, just to make her stupid joke in reference to her hero name. He wanted Aizawa-sensei to be there in the morning, struggling with the coffee machine and grumbling about his arms. He wanted the man to snap at him to eat his food. As the hours ticked by, Izuku lay awake, mind reeling and unable to relax. By the time the sun rose, Izuku had dark circles under his eyes rivaling Shinsu's. Underscore 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 underscore. The Basho couple had been warned about the child's history and had taken precautions against some of the kid's more extreme behaviors. They wanted the boy to enjoy himself, but he also needed to respect their authority. Rina and Hayate had taken off work for the month to help the boy settle and had set their alarm to wake before sunrise to ensure that breakfast would be waiting for the boy when he awoke. It became clear to Rina that the child hadn't slept a wink when he entered the room. "Good morning, Midoriya-kun," Hayate greeted. The boy merely looked in his direction, not speaking back. His shoulders were tensed, and he kept them in his line of sight at all times. Rina had handled children like this in the past, and simply gave him room to be uncomfortable. New situations were strong, and with a past like Midoriya's, it wasn't strange that he was so untrusting. "I've made breakfast. Come sit and eat. We can talk over the meal," Rina said, settling the bowls and plates down. Midoriya sat, but didn't touch the food, only eyeing it as if it had insulted him. The woman sighed and passed a bowl of rice over to the boy. "You must eat, Midoriya-kun. Hayate and I will not allow you to starve yourself." The boy tensed up and glared at her, mouth forming into a scowl. "Perhaps this would be a good time to review what we expect of you and what you can expect from us," Hayate suggested. "I think it will put us all on the same level." The boy glared at them both. "I already know my rules. I don't need new ones. The rules in this house may be different than the ones at UA. I think it would be in RB. This isn't my home. I'm never going to listen to the two of you. It's not even worth it to try." The boy hissed. Rina and Hayate looked at one another before straightening up and squaring their shoulders. "This is not easy for you. We understand that," Hayate said. "But you will still be expected to show us respect. You are a child, and we are adults. We are in charge of you and only want what's best." "Bullshit," the boy spit out, sitting straighter as well. His fists were clenched tightly on the table, and his body shook with rage, sadness, confusion. Rina wasn't exactly sure. One thing she did know was that this boy was acting this way because he was in an unfamiliar situation. This was a defense mechanism. "I ask that you not use that language in my home," Hayate said in a calm tone. "I can say whatever the FCK I want, old man." Midoriya huffed, standing from his seat. Rina clasped her hands, taking a breath. This would be a long conversation. Underscore 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 underscore. The rules weren't unreasonable. In fact, most of them mirrored the rules at UA, but Deku didn't want to follow them. He didn't want to give these people a chance. Maybe if he acted out enough, they would send him back. He was expected to show the two of them respect. No cussing. He had to eat 3 meals a day, at least. He would be expected to do chores and schoolwork, all of which would be given at the start of the day. Nothing too extreme, and all of it would be achievable in the time he was given. Heiatsun would take him out to exercise at the end of the day to release his energy. If he needed to exhaust himself before that, there was a treadmill in the home that he could use at any time. Access to the outside was limited for now. They knew he was a flight risk and had been briefed on the cuffs around his wrists and ankles. The cuffs were connected to their phones and the house location. The moment he went out of bounds, a notification would be sent to the police of whom controlled the cuffs. This had made Deku nervous, but instead of being sensible, as the Izuku part of his mind told him to be, the fear won out and Deku had screamed at the two in anger, running back to the room and slamming the door. Now he laid in bed, cuddling his plush bunny close. This entire thing was stupid. He wanted to go home. He wanted Aizawa-sensei. But he doesn't want you. You wouldn't be here if he really wanted you. At lunch, he was called back to the table. Heiatsun and Rinneson weren't upset with him over his reaction earlier. In fact, they seemed to have forgotten about it. They chatted with each other over the food and attempted to learn more about Deku, but he refused to answer any of their questions. He kept his mouth firmly shut as they chatted. I thought it would be nice to get something for you, Midoriya-kun. Perhaps a new bedspread or an outfit. It might help you settle in, Heiatsun said. Deku rolled his eyes at him, huffing slightly. Is there something you might like? Rinneson asked, encouragingly. I'd like to go back to Ua, Deku said. The two adults didn't respond. Underscore 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 underscore. He had promised to stay put. He had promised to act nice. But it was so damn strong. Deku currently paced the floor of his room. It was after 21 o'clock, which meant it was lights out. The adults had gone to bed as well, leaving the rest of the house empty. As Deku paced, he grew more and more restless. He wanted to run. He wanted to go back to school. But he had promised. So he just continued pacing. It had been over 36 hours since he had last slept, and the tired ache was beginning to catch up, but Deku still paced. Back and forth. Back and forth. At 3 o'clock, he exited the room, walking as quietly as he could through the house. He knew he couldn't leave, but he needed something. Anything to keep his mind occupied. If that meant he could also frustrate the Besho couple a little, he would. He stopped in the office first, rearranging the bookshelf and turning all the books so the covers faced inwards. He then moved around all of the knickknacks, even placing a few in odd places, such as in the fake tree and in one of the drawers of the desk. After rearranging things, he took to the electronics, pulling a wire in the printer so it wouldn't turn on. He hadn't broken anything, just unplugged something that really shouldn't be unplugged if you want it to function. Then he had turned to the laptops and had screwed around on those as well. On one, Heiatsun's, he had screenshot the main page before moving all the files into a hidden folder. Then he had changed the background to the screenshot so it wouldn't look any different. On Rina's, he had changed the date and time to that across the world, screwing up the notifications that also went to her phone. He also changed the language to German, knowing she most likely did not understand that particular language. From there, he moved to the kitchen where he rearranged all of the dishes, placing them in different cabinets. After that, he rearranged the cabinets in the bathroom as well. In the living room, he moved everything over by 2 inches, and then carefully balanced a bunch of the pictures, knickknacks, lamps, and other shelf items upside down. By then, it was 6 o'clock, and he heard the alarm go off in the master bedroom. He slowly creeped back to his own room and laid down, pretending to be asleep. It took less than an hour for the knock on his door. Midoriya-kun, please come out, came Rinneson's firm voice. She was upset, but hiding it well. Deku could tell. Deku closed his eyes and pretended to sleep, evening his breath as he listened to the muted voices outside. Another knock sounded on the door and Rinneson called for him again. Deku ignored it once more. After another 30 minutes, another knock sounded, and then the door opened. Deku jumped slightly at the intrusion. I know you aren't sleeping. We need to talk. Please get up and come to the table, Heiatsun said. Deku ignored him and didn't move from the bed. Another 30 minutes, and yet another knock. Heiatsun opened the door again. If you aren't going to come out, we will come in. Deku continued to ignore them, snuggling deeper into the blankets and squeezing tighter to his rabbit. The two adults entered the room. Rin-san sat on the bed and Heiatsun took the desk chair. Midoriya-san, why would you do those things to the house? Rin-san asked, sounding tired. I don't know what you're talking about. Deku grumbled, guilt starting to rise in his saying at her tone. The bookshelves, the dishes, the pictures. You moved them all. You hid some stuff that we still haven't found. Did you check the plants? Deku asked, a smirk gracing his lips from under the covers. No, because you are going to put it all right, Rin-san said. Deku snorted. What if I don't? Then you will lose some privileges. Deku sat up, looking at both adults. What privileges? You will not be allowed to close your door. Heiat will not take you out to the gym. No friends will be allowed over. I don't have friends here. You took me away from everyone, Deku said, voice calm despite the coiling snake in his stomach. You could still invite someone over, but you must behave. Deku laid back down and ignored the two as they continued talking to him. He didn't care. The two tried to encourage him to fix the house and put things right throughout the day, but Deku refused. In the end, Rin-san took the door down from his room, shaking her head as she did so. You can have your privacy back when you do as asked, she said with a sigh. Please change in the bathroom if you need to. The following days were much the same. Deku had to commend Rin-san and Heiatsun for their diligence in dealing with his mischief. Ultimately, though, he knew he could break them. When Heiatsun had figured out his computer had been messed with, he'd had to go out for a while to calm down. Rin-san didn't seem to let anything faze her. She was definitely more prepared for what he was doing. On the 7th day, Mochizuki-san came to check on him. He had outright refused to even greet the woman, much to all of the adults' disappointment. Underscore 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 underscore. Hello, I am Basho-rina. It's a pleasure to meet you, the woman stated with a bow. Aizawa eyed her curiously. The woman was well put together. Her graying hair held back in a tight bun. She was muscled but slim. I am one of Midoriya Izuku's new foster parents, the woman said. Aizawa straightened up in his seat, glancing at Nezu who was grinning widely, hands clasped together. The other teachers around the table all stirred as well, shifting in their seats and straightening just as Aizawa had. They had been in the middle of a staff meeting when the knock had sounded on the door. One of Ectoplasm's clones had entered with the woman before exiting the room, once more to go back to its job. Welcome, Basho-san. To what do we owe this pleasure? The woman straightened from her bow, glancing around the room, assessing the teachers. My husband and I have been having some trouble with Midoriya-kun. I was hoping you could give me insight on how to handle some of his behavioral problems. Oh, Nezu said, a glint flashing in his eye. I understand that this does not put you at ease, the woman said. It was made clear that Midoriya-kun was coming to my home due to the decision of the state, not because you had given him up. I am also aware that you are also petitioning to have him back. The teachers looked at her expectantly. For now, however, Midoriya-kun is in my care. I hope to do everything possible to make it pleasant for him. Thus, I have come for advice. What exactly do you need advice on? Kayama asked, brows knitting together. Basho-san took a great breath before speaking. I have had foster children in the past. I have handled the children lashing out in anger and fear or by performing pranks, but I've never experienced a child go to his extent. What the brat do? Aizawa asked, internally groaning. On his second night, while my husband and I slept, he rearranged every bookshelf, displaced every photo and decoration, switched the bathroom and kitchen cabinets, and managed to flip most objects and balance them upside down. He also messed with our laptops and the printer, making them unusable. The woman paused. We told him to put things back to how they were, but he refused. He didn't even get out of bed, though I am sure he didn't sleep. We removed the door from his bedroom until he put things back the way they were. A few of the teachers smiled wryly at one another. Having experienced similar antics, formed the boy, though not all at once. I'm also pretty sure he moved all of the furniture over slightly that night as well. Though, it took me a few days to realize why I kept running into things. Did he put everything back? No. The woman sighed, shaking her head. Other than things that are absolutely necessary to correct for safety reasons, everything is still messed up. I have told Midoriya-kun that he would receive more freedom if he fixes things, but he still refuses. In fact, he continued screwing with things. Really? Kayama asked, brows rising. Usually, he would put things back before messing with more stuff, she thought out loud. He has taken all of the light bulbs in the house and hidden them. When my husband replaced the bulbs, they too had disappeared by the next day. We've searched everywhere we could think of. He had also done something to the other electronics, including the microwave, the coffee maker, the television, the air conditioner, and more. In fact, the only thing he hasn't broken is the oven and stove, it seems. I assure you, the appliances are most likely not broken, just tampered with. Powerloader said, nodding in sympathy. He covered all of the couches and beds with saran wrap, blankets, scotch tape, and anything else he could find as well on the fourth night. He even managed to wrap my own bed while I was sleeping. The woman sagged as she thought off all the boy had done. An extra chair was brought in for her to sit in at that point. She gratefully took it. He traded out our soaps and shampoos with kitchen products 2 days ago. I honestly am not even sure how he does most of these things. My husband and I have even been taking shifts, but somehow. The woman shook her head, exhaustion now pouring off of her in waves. I woke up this morning to find all of the flowers in the front and backyard to have been switched. He must have worked all night, but when we checked on him, he was in bed. Has there been any damage to your things? Nezu asked. No. Nothing has been damaged so long as the electronics are able to be fixed. That's the thing. Even if it is exhausting and frustrating, I can handle the mischief. He isn't causing any real harm. But he won't put things back. He either completely ignores my husband and I, or he cusses us out. We have yet to have a single conversation with him. He stays in his room all day, even though we offer to take him out. He is falling behind in his schoolwork. He hasn't been sleeping, but a few hours at a time. He won't eat. Aizawa huffed angrily at the last statement, leaning back in his chair. I can handle the other things, but his stubbornness is beginning to affect his health. There is no way he can keep this up for much longer, and not cause himself more harm than his scratching is already causing, she said with a hint of helplessness. He's scratching. How badly? Aizawa asked sharply. I have never caught him in the act, but his arms are littered with fresh wounds. His neck and face are also beginning to show signs. Not only that, but I'm pretty sure he is having nightmares when he is able to fall asleep. I've caught him sobbing a few times, though he only screams at me to get out. I've been trying to give him space. That does sound like a problem, Nezu said, voice light. Aizawa rolled his eyes at the tone. I need to know how you managed to get him to at least listen on a basic level. For his sake, the woman said, bowing low in her seat. What have you done so far? Aizawa asked. We set the ground rules the day after he arrived. He didn't take kindly to them. When he began breaking the rules and acting out, we took away the privacy of his room. We told him he could have it back once he set everything straight. We then took away his time outside. After that, we've initiated 10-minute checks in which either myself or my husband check to make sure he isn't doing anything he shouldn't be. He doesn't watch TV or use the computer, nor does he seem to partake in any hobbies, so there was nothing to take away. I'm truly at a loss. It sounds like he doesn't respect you, Aizawa said, forcing down a small vindictive grin. The woman nodded her head solemnly. He is more likely to respond to a man, Kayama said suddenly. The woman looked up. His record said he was untrustworthy towards men, she said. He is. Cementos provided. There is a fine line you must walk so as not to scare him away. If your husband raises his voice wrong or uses too harsh of a tone, he will shut down. The little listener also sounds bored. Yamada said, a small grin on his face. Don't take away physical activity, give him more. Tiring him out will keep him from pulling as many pranks. Give him something to do with his hands. A puzzle or a broken object he must fix. Powerloader suggested. But he is refusing to do anything but lie in bed. The woman said, voice raising slightly. He needs a goal to focus on. Aizawa supplied. Find him a goal, and you will see a major change in the brat. The woman sat back, thinking. What type of goal would motivate him? Well, he was aiming to be a hero while he was here. Nezu supplied. So I need to find something else he could aim for. The woman said. Don't give him false hope, though. Aizawa spoke. Don't tell him he will be able to see one of us if you won't actually allow it. He respects the truth. Don't touch him, either. Toshinori said with a small smile. Be nearby when he is having a meltdown, though. Even if he doesn't want your physical comfort, he feels safer when he isn't alone despite his words, said Kayama. Keep in mind that questions will make him shut off. You have to wait for him to give things up. Yamada provided. If he doesn't like you, which it doesn't sound like he does, it's better to ask him to do things rather than to command him to do things, said Ectoplasm. If you really need to get him under control, though, count back from 5. Aizawa said. Don't use it all the time. However, I don't think he actually likes it. I haven't had the time to figure out why, though. The woman nodded at all the advice. Nezu hummed. If you have more trouble, feel free to ask. You seem to be a good person who is looking out for Midoriya-kun's best interest. I must tell you, however, I will be mentioning this meeting in my petition to get him back. I understand. Basshausen said, standing and bowing. I will be taking my leave then. Deku was staring down Heiatsun for the gazillionth time in the last 3 days. The man had asked Izuku to help fix the kitchen and Deku was outright refusing. He preferred the kitchen the way it currently was. It reminded him of the one at Yua. Things had become strange in the Basho household after Rinnesan had returned from her day trip 3 days previous. She had pulled Heiatsun into their bedroom and spoken with him for well over an hour. After that, Heiatsun and Rinnesan's tones, body language, and overall presence had changed. Heiatsun took charge more, asking and sometimes telling Izuku to do things in a tone that made Izuku want to obey. It was no nonsense, firm. Very different from the soft, pitying voice he had used previously. It had actually scared the green-eyed boy at first. It was the tone that he associated with authority. Other than Aizawa-sensei, most of the people who had been in that role had hurt Izuku in some way. He was wary that it would happen again. Thus, Izuku had obeyed at first. He had fixed all of the appliances in the home that he had messed with and given back the multitude of light bulbs he had taken. In return, Heiatsun had thanked him. At the time, it had filled Izuku with pride. Later that night, however, it had only made Izuku feel sick. He couldn't let himself feel those things. Not with these people. The Basho family was temporary, just like everywhere else had been. He had thought he'd learned his lesson when he ended up on the street, only to fall for the false sense of permanence at Yua. Izuku refused to fall for it again. At some point, he would be taken away from this home too. At some point, the Basho couple wouldn't want him. They would give up on him and all his issues. Or maybe they would die, as Aizawa-sensei almost had. Or maybe, just as with Yue, the government would decide that Izuku didn't belong in that house either. They would say the home was too dangerous, or, a more likely scenario, that Izuku was too dangerous for the home. No one will ever keep you long term. His thoughts echoed. Who would even want to? Aizawa-sensei is probably jumping for joy by now. An entire week, and he hasn't even attempted to come get you. So pitiful, so stupid, so worthless, so useless. No one will ever love you. The following day, Heiatsun had done the same as the day previous. This time, Deku fought back. He refused to just roll over like a dog for this stranger. He didn't even know the man. Really. He didn't know his true nature. He hadn't been around long enough. Deku had a feeling that if he pushed back strong enough, Hayate would finally show his true colors and hit him. Or maybe lock him in the empty closet that threatened Izuku every night. It was only a matter of time. But Aizawa-sensei never hit you. He never locked you up. Aizawa-sensei and the UA teachers can't be the only good people in the world. But Aizawa-sensei had let him leave. He hadn't even said goodbye when Izuku left the car. He had only stared after him. Aizawa-sensei had wanted him gone. It was the only thing that made sense. It was the only reason the man hadn't come to see him yet, despite Deku leaving the window wide open at night. Hayate, with the aid of Rinne-san, had managed to get Deku to fix the shelves and find all the decorations. He hadn't put everything back where it belonged, but he had gotten pretty close to returning the whole house to how it had been before he had arrived. Somehow, they also managed to make him eat. He hadn't even really realized what he was doing until half the food was gone. Deku supposed it didn't help that he wasn't used to being hungry anymore. His mind was simply weaker than it had been when he was on the streets. The Bastos had clearly monopolized on this fact. Deku had drawn the line at schoolwork, however, and had run back into his room, diving under the covers of the large bed to hide with the plush rabbit, before either adult could trick him into doing that, too. Last night had been odd, too. Deku had wanted to get back at the couple for tricking him, and had been taking all of the chairs out of the house and placing them on the roof. He kept having to slide back into bed every time one of the adults woke up, but at one point, Rinne-san had broken the 30-minute break between checks. She had caught him red-handed, maneuvering a chair out the open window. She had told him to put everything back, but when he refused, she had gotten this look on her face. A look that Izuku had jumped at. "You have 5 seconds to start putting things back the way they are," she had said. Then she began counting back, slowly, but surely. The hair on Izuku's neck and arms had stood on end by the time she reached 3, and he had scrambled to start putting things back. He hated when adults counted down like that. It always put him on edge. How had she even figured out to do it? It had taken Aizawa-sensei months. A lucky guess, perhaps? Either way, she had stood in the living room, whilst Hayate had stood outside, making sure Izuku did as told and was safe whilst doing so. The boy had escaped back to his room as soon as he had finished, breaking down the moment he was under the covers. Rinne-san had looked guiltily at his reddened arms. The next morning over breakfast, and Izuku had flinched away from the gaze, quickly donning his hoodie to hide his weakness from her. Now, Hayate was at it again. Rinne-san backing him as had become normal. "No. FCKU. I don't have to do sit," Deku screamed at them. Hayate frowned at the language a weakness. Yet, Rinne-san only shook her head. "All we are asking is for you to put right what you did," Rinne-san said in a smooth voice. Not pitying, not angry. "I fixed it. It was wrong before I got here. I just fixed it. I'm not putting something back if it will just make things worse. The shelves, okay. The furniture, fine. But the kitchen isn't broken anymore. I'm not putting it back. This is the last thing you need to do to get the door put back on your room. I don't give a shit about any FC King door." Deku seethed. "I haven't had one for over a week. It's not that big of a bother." Hayate sighed, looking towards his wife for support. This made Deku bristle. They were ganging up on him and making it obvious. He hated that. He hated them. He hated this whole system. "I will give you until the end of the day," Hayate said. "If you do not fix the kitchen by then, we will discuss the repercussions." "You mean the punishment?" Deku said, his voice much calmer than he felt. "Yes. But as we've told you before, you will not be hurt in any way. It's not like the past," Rinne-san assured. Deku growled at her, backing away. "Why should I trust your words? You think I'll just roll over and do what you say? You just FC King threatened me. I'm not gonna do sit. I don't care what you do in retaliation." Though Deku was acting brave, he couldn't stop the tremble racing through his body. He couldn't stop the catch of his breath. He had basically given them permission to discipline him in any way. If he got hit now, it would be his own fault. Neither adult spoke as Deku stormed away to his safe haven once more. Under the covers, Deku felt secure. With Mitaragi in his arms, he felt safe, maybe even a little loved. It was the only physical place in his entire life that he was in control of now. Underscore 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 Deku had not, in fact, done the kitchen as he was asked. So the following day, Rinneson came into his room to talk. I have been racking my brain, trying to figure out why you refused to do this last thing. Deku merely stared at her. I want to work this out. What's my punishment? Deku snapped. That's the thing. Hayate and I were talking last night, and we aren't even sure how to discipline you. It's not as if you really have any privileges to take away. You won't listen if we try to make you do something such as write lines or do extra homework. Everything has already been stripped away. Deku sat upright, back hitting his headboard. It must have been very difficult for you to leave a place you saw as home. I've never had a home, Deku said quickly, tightening his hands in the sheets. Rinneson's eyes flickered with understanding, and she nodded her head. This only made Deku more angry. How dare she act as if she understood? How dare she have that knowing look on her face? Go away, Deku said through his teeth. This has been even more difficult because we started off on the wrong foot. You were in trouble from day one. That was unfortunate. I want you to realize that things do not need to be this way. You can learn thaw. I said go away, Deku screamed, swinging himself off the bed and backing towards the window. He didn't want to talk. He didn't want to have this conversation. He didn't want to ever belong here or become comfortable. She couldn't make him. Rinneson paused a moment, and then firmly cemented her mouth shut. But she didn't move. Get out! Go away! Deku yelled at her. But the woman sat still on the chair. Hayatsun appeared in the doorway and froze in place when his wife held up a hand. Deku felt extremely trapped now. He couldn't even escape to the other parts of the home with Hayat at the door. He backed further into the room, back hitting the windowsill. Please, leave. Get out. I don't want to talk, Deku said, voice coming weaker. Neither adult moved as Rinneson spoke up. I am not leaving. But we don't have to talk if you don't want to. Deku rubbed at his wrists, drawing the eyes of the adults. But neither said anything about it. He wanted them gone. Go away, I don't want you, Deku said, voice still low. Izuku was stirring under the Deku mask, and he grimaced. The green-eyed boy slid down the wall and curled into a chair, repeatedly telling the two to go away. He was trying strong to keep the mask up, but the suffocating feeling of his exit route being cut off overwhelmed him. Eventually, the wretched tears brought on by the Izuku side overtook him, and he stopped telling the adult to leave as he cried. It was shameful to be so weak in front of these strangers. It was wrong. He was never like this in the past. Eventually, he had managed to calm himself, and he slowly looked up to find the two still in the room. Fine. I'll fix the kitchen, he said after a while. I don't want to talk. Hayatsun nodded his head once, but Rinneson only sighed. Me staying in the room wasn't meant to hurt your feelings. I stayed because I didn't want to leave you all alone, she whispered. Izuku looked away uncomfortably. I said I'd fix the kitchen. P please. J just. INN need our room. PP please GGO. Underscore 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 underscore. The door went right back on its hinges when Izuku finished reorganizing the kitchen back to how it had originally been, just as the two had promised. It did nothing to stop the curling unease in his scent. This was the first step to growing attached. He couldn't let himself. He couldn't. Not again. Not after Aizawa-sensei and Yua. They had said they would try to get him back, but he hadn't heard anything from them. Almost 2 weeks and not a word. It hurt more than the injuries he'd received at the Aschi. Just as he had said, Aizawa-sensei had abandoned him in the end anyway. He'd been betrayed by yet another adult. First daddy, the mama. Then all the families that came after. The police. The people of his territory. Kai and Kei, Seichusen, Nezu, Aizawa-sensei. They all lied. They all left. He was doomed to be alone. He couldn't let himself be attached anymore. He couldn't. He was done. Why, though? The thought whispered in his mind. Why, indeed? What was it about him that made everyone leave? Even if he called it a curse, Izuku wasn't stupid. The curse had a cause. He was doing something wrong. It was his fault. He was the only factor that hadn't changed in all of his different homes. What was it? Would he never belong anywhere? Would he never be at peace? He needed to ask. If only he could ask. But he could, couldn't he? Yua was a half-hour train ride and a 15-minute walk away. He just needed to find a way around the cuffs. If he could ask the teachers. If he could ask Aizawa-sensei what it was about him that people hated. Then maybe he could let himself live here. Maybe he could allow these people to get close. So long as he could change. He just had to change. It wasn't strong to figure it out. The security in this house was pitiful compared to Yua. It was quite easy in the end. He pretended to sleep. Eased the two adults into a false sense of security. After 2 hours of no checks, he knew he was in the clear. Both members of the Basho family had fallen asleep. He practically glided across the floor, his steps quick but silent. He had entered and exited the master bedroom in less than a minute. 2 phones and a few $100 now in his possession, less than $5. He only needed the phones for his cuffs to register him as being with the new Fosters. With them in his grasp, he confidently left the home. Underscore 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 Izuku was sitting on the train, almost to the next station when the phones in his pockets buzzed. Izuku looked down at one of the screens and sucked in a quick, sharp breath. Yellow status initiated. Cause: unauthorized late-night travel. Location: Musutafu train rail direction northwest. Police notified await call. FCK, 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 FCK. This wasn't good. What now? Then the phone rang. Once. Izuku yelped, fumbling with the device. Twice. The phone fell under the seat. 3 times. Izuku grabbed it and quickly hit end. This was not good. This was not good. The doors of the train opened and Izuku sprinted out of them. This was really not good. He had to make it to UA before they activated. If he was cuffed before reaching school, if he was put in that situation, especially when he already felt so trapped in his own head, he would completely melt down. When he was a third of the way to school, the second phone rang. Deku ran stronger, faster, allowing the phone to ring and buy himself some time. It rang a total of 6 times before it stopped. Another buzz went off and Deku fought with himself over whether he should check the notification or not. In the end, his curiosity won out and Deku slowed slightly so he could read the message. Black status initiated. Cause: unauthorized late-night travel, no answer. Location: UA Pathway 0. 3K from gate. Police notified. Code Silver awaiting initiation. Deku knew that the faster he ran, the more it would hurt when the cuffs activated, but he refused to slow. He needed to get to the gate. He needed to get to safety. The closer the better. Each second that the cuffs didn't activate brought about a greater anxiety within the boy. Were they toying with him? Would he actually get cuffed? Would the damn things activate? He just needed to make it. The gates were 10 steps away. 7 steps. 4. 1. Deku was banging on the gates as strong as he could, hitting the call button over and over. He had dropped the phone he had been holding when he went to bang on the entrance. Its screen, now slightly cracked, lit up with another message briefly, though Deku didn't notice as he yelled to be let in. A strong jolt ran through his arms and legs. As if in slow motion, He felt his arms be pulled behind his back, like some kind of magnet was drawing them together. His knees buckled as his wrists were pulled down towards his now cuffed ankles. He just barely managed to widen his knees to keep his center of gravity as all four cuffs connected to one another. A deep breath. Don't cry. Another breath. Don't scream. Another breath. Deku's mind whited out, and the forthcoming wail echoed through the street. Underscore 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 underscore. Aizawa groaned as something woke him from his light slumber. He groaned louder when he realized that his phone was vibrating and lighting up. Not many people had his number, so anytime his phone went off this late, it usually meant there was an emergency. One look at the screen had Aizawa shooting up, disturbing Hisashi, whose phone was also ringing. Black status initiated. Cause: unauthorized late-night travel, no answer. Location: UA Pathway 0. 3K from gate. Police notified. Code Silver awaiting initiation. Get up. It's Izuku. Aizawa hissed at his husband as he jumped up from the bed, dressing as quickly as he could. What the hell was the brat thinking? Just as he started down the stairs, the phone buzzed again. Code Silver initiated. Cause: unauthorized late-night travel, no answer. Location: UA Pathway 0. Zk from gate. Police notified. Aizawa was out the front door in an instant, heading straight for the gates. He heard the scream the moment the door opened. It sounded tortured, agonized. Had the kid been hurt? Was it the cuffs or something else? FCK. Why was he here? After the initial cry, there was nothing. Aizawa strained his ears, but it wasn't until he could see the gate that he picked up on Izuku's voice again. He was sobbing, crying for help. Crying for Aizawa. That was his kid. His kid needed him, and he wasn't immediately available. Again. Aizawa cursed as his bum arm got in the way of him pulling out his ID to open the gate. Finally, after a few fumbles, his code was recognized, and the doors started to slide open. The gate couldn't open fast enough. The kid was kneeling right at the gates, arms locked behind his back. His face was splotchy, as if he had been running, and tear tracks marred his cheeks. Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa-sensei. He mumbled between sobs. I'm right here, kid. Aizawa said as he knelt down to be in the boy's line of sight. Sorry, I'm sorry. He choked out. It's fine. Take a breath, Izuku. You need to breathe. W want them off. W want them off. I know. Shota, Hisashi's voice called. Aizawa waited for his husband to catch up before greeting him back. Zashi. Let's get him inside the gates. Aizawa murmured. The blonde nodded and knelt down by Izuku as well. Can I take you inside, Izuku? The boy nodded, hiccuping slightly as more apologies slipped from his lips. Hisashi's eyes softened as he carefully wrapped his arms around the boy. It was awkward to carry a hogtied person, but Hisashi made it look easy. He settled Izuku just inside the gates whilst Aizawa closed them back. No need keeping the school wide open while waiting for the police to arrive. Izuku was still crying, though it was much more tame now that Aizawa and Hisashi were with him. A mixture of apologies and begging to be released continuously fell from his mouth, while Hisashi checked the kid over for any injuries. Izuku, I know it's scary. I know you don't like it, but you have to calm down. You are still hyperventilating. Aizawa said calmly. I need you to breathe with me, okay, kid? Izuku nodded, eye clenching tightly shut. In. Aizawa said, counting to 5, inhaling deeply. Hold. Aizawa continued, counting to 3. Out. Aizawa let out a slow breath, counting to 7. The boy copied each step as best he could, finally relaxing slightly despite his binds. Good. Aizawa praised. The hell are you doing here at 4 o'clock, problem child? Aizawa scolded immediately after. His tone was still soft, but the words were sharp enough to make the kid flinch back. Sorry. I'm sorry. Izuku responded. Aizawa sighed and shook his head. I'm not looking for an apology, kid. I'm looking for an explanation. Izuku shook his head, arms tugging at the binds harshly before a fresh wave of tears cascaded down his cheeks. I want out. Please let enemy out. Let go. I can't. You have to wait for someone with access. Don't leave me alone. I won't. Aizawa said, falling into the familiar habit of these reassurances. Hello, Midoriya-kun, came Nezu's voice. The boy's head lifted from its bowed state, and he started pleading to be let go once more. Nezu's eyes softened, but he shook his head. I no longer have permission to do so. We must wait for the police. How long? I want the move. Any second now. As if on cue, the sirens became audible and steadily grew louder. The closer they approached, the more Izuku quivered, his head shaking back and forth quickly, as if trying to make the sound disappear. Tell them to cut the sirens, Zashi, Aizawa said as the voice hero moved to reopen the gates. The blonde nodded, glancing at Izuku before stepping away. Detective Tsukachi sometimes hated his job. Now was one of them. His phone had gone off, waking him from sleep, only for a rookie officer to frantically tell him that Deku was on the loose. Tsukachi had groaned as he sat up, speaking quickly to try and calm the officer. In the end, the detective had figured out that Deku wasn't actually on the loose. In fact, he was simply running towards what he thought of as home. A major step for the kid considering his past. The detective had warned the rookie not to activate the cuffs, but the idiot had pressed the button before Tsukachi had even finished speaking. The man almost cursed at the rookie, but held himself back, asking for a senior officer instead. It was decided that the officer would meet him at UA with the tablet, so that Tsukachi could type in the release code once the situation was assessed. Not for the first time, Tsukachi was glad. He lived so close to the hero school. Upon arriving at the scene, he had grabbed the tablet and immediately typed in the code, much to the chagrin of the other officers. They had wanted to investigate first, but Tsukachi could hear the boy crying. He could see Eraserhead, still bandaged from his fight at the Usji, kneeling down on the ground. The kid was under control. No reason to lengthen his suffering. As soon as the cuffs released, Tsukachi watched as Eraserhead fell back onto his bottom, one arm gently holding the small boy that was now half in his lap. At that point, the sirens were cut, and a brief moment of silence filled the air before the boy's hurried apologies filled the space. Izuku couldn't stop the trembles quaking throughout his body. He wasn't cold or sick or even scared anymore. Yet, he couldn't keep his hands from jittering as he took the teacup from Nezu. They had brought him inside the main building, walking up to Nezu's office where everyone could talk and wait for the Basho couple to arrive. It was eerie being in the main building when all of its lights were cut, but it still felt more familiar to Izuku than the house he'd lived in for the past 2 weeks. He hadn't let go of Aizawa-sensei since the cuffs had been removed. He couldn't let go. Even now, he opted to sit on the floor at the man's feet, rather than in the offered chair where 2 armrests would keep them apart. In the back of his mind, he realized that doing so should be embarrassing. He was almost 15, and he was latching onto this adult like a toddler. Yet, this adult was safe. Not many teachers had been at the dorms that night, only Aizawa-sensei, Yamada-sensei, and Snipe-sensei. But everyone who had originally been one of his secondary caretakers, those who received the safety messages, had all been notified when he went to black status. Yamada-sensei was currently dealing with the multitude of calls from the staff. Kayame-sensei had simply shown up in Nezu's office, dressed in a less than appropriate nightgown that made the detective and some of the police blush. She had immediately gone over to Izuku and sat in front of him, whispering words of affection filled with a questioning undertone. She had reached out a hand to rub his back, slowly, making sure Izuku could see. Just not my shoulders, Izuku had mumbled through a small hiccup. Kayame-sensei had smiled softly at that, and then allowed her hand to make contact with him, soothing the shaking. Aizawa-sensei wasn't saying much to Izuku, only sitting in the chair, observing all that was happening. It made Izuku nervous. Maybe the man was upset that he had shown his face again. After all, Aizawa had just recently been rid of Izuku. It would be like Izuku had crashed his celebratory party. Izuku had looked up at him a few times, and opened his mouth to speak, but had stopped himself when the anxiety of hearing the answer filled him. In the end, however, he had to ask before the Basshos arrived. Kayame-sensei was now speaking quietly with Yamade-sensei over in the corner. Nezu was sitting at his desk, patiently twiddling his thumbs, Izuku guessed. The detective was in a chair over to the side, typing something on his tablet. The two officers, Nakiasen and Watanabe-san, were retrieving the Basshos and bringing them here. They would probably arrive in 15 minutes or so. This would be his only chance. Aizawa-sensei? Izuku asked hesitantly as he shifted to look up at the man. Aizawa shook his head and hummed in question. He sounded tired. I'm sorry, Izuku said. Cut it out with the apologizing, problem child. Aizawa huffed. Not unless you want to specify what it's for. Izuku flinched slightly. What the apology was for? For interrupting his sleep. Showing up at Yua unannounced. Running away from the Basshos. Clutching onto him like a lost child. Being broken. Being useless. Existing. So many things. How could he explain them all? Are you mad? Izuku asked instead. Aizawa-sensei sat upright, leveling a calculating stare at Izuku. Sit in a chair, problem child. I'm not going to talk down to you, he said instead of answering the question. Izuku did as asked, moving the vacant chair he was offered as close to Aizawa's as he could get it before sitting down. The space it created echoed painfully in his body. Yes, I am mad, Aizawa said at last. Izuku looked away in shame, biting back the tears that had immediately sprung to his eyes. I had told you not to run away from the new family. You didn't listen. Izuku shrunk in on himself slightly at the words. Do you realize how many people you've disrupted tonight? How many people you've worried? The tears fell and Izuku shrugged his shoulder once, weakly. Shota, Yamade-sensei said warningly. But Aizawa-sensei had held up his good arm to cut him off. So, you had better have a damn good reason for doing this, or else I'll not only be mad, but disappointed too, he continued. Izuku hesitated. He closed his mouth again, thinking through his words. I had TTO ask you as something important. But I knew they wouldn't let me see you. I was gonna GGGO back, he said hesitantly. Aizawa-sensei sighed, moving his good arm to rub at his temple lightly. What's the important question then, brat? Izuku's shaking finally stilled as a new type of fear washed over him. Did he even want the answer now? What if Aizawa-sensei couldn't give him a clear reason? What if it was just his entire being that people didn't like? Could he even hope to change his entire self, if that was the answer? The adults in the room were all looking at him now, expectantly waiting to hear what he had to say. Izuku didn't even notice as he warred with himself, his only focus on the question and Aizawa-sensei's eventual response. Why? Izuku sucked in a breath, hands playing with the bands around his wrists. Why didn't? He stopped again. You didn't come looking for me. You didn't CC call or CH check up or, he shifted uncomfortably at the strong stare he was now being given. What am I doing wrong? Why am I always? He shook his head again. Why doesn't anyone want to keep me? He finally managed to whisper. Little listener, that's not Yamade-san started, but the look on Izuku's face made him fall silent. I thought I was doing okay. I thought you would want me be back. T tried to get me back. But you didn't. So you mustn't have wanted me. What's wrong with MME? Izuku took a breath. Aizawa didn't make any move to speak, and Izuku felt the need to fill the silence. I tried. I did. I know I'm not perfect. But you could have told me. I would have changed. Izuku continued, clenching his fists to keep from digging his nails into his arms. I left the window open, he said. Yamada, who was now standing behind Aizawa, looked confused. This cued him in that he should explain that further. In case they weren't letting you see me. I left it open so you could sneak in. When Aizawa still didn't answer, Izuku continued more. I tried to make them hate me. So they would send me back. I didn't hurt anything permanently. You would scold me for that. I didn't hurt them either. But then they wouldn't give up. And th then she came and talked to you. Are innocent. She came and talked to you a few days ago, and that's what changed. Alright. Still no answer. Because they started to do things that you do. When I'm being bad. I thought it was luck at FF first. But Tade, in the room. He shook his head again to clear it. She came to you and you didn't follow her back home. You didn't ask for me back. You didn't do anything. The last sentence came out stronger, angrier, and rushed as the Deku mask was slipped on. Aizawa waited, as if Izuku hadn't said anything worth answering. Deku looked up into the bandaged face, eyes sharp. Answer me, he commanded. Why didn't you come find me? Why didn't you bring me back home? He shouted. Why aren't you talking? With that one, Deku stood. What's so wrong with me that you can't even speak? Izuku Kame-sensei started, but Deku looked at her sharply. Eyes narrowed as if she were invading his space. I'm not asking you, he said, keeping his voice low in an attempt to not be rude. He turned back to Aizawa and counted to 60, waiting for him to respond. When the man merely shifted, Deku stepped back a pace, body slumping as if defeated. His clenched fists shook as the trembles started up in his body again. Why am I so broken? He asked, voice hitching as tears spread to his eyes again. Why can't anybody just love me? Underscore 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 underscore. Aizawa wasn't exactly sure why he remained silent. Maybe he wanted to see the reaction of both sides of the problem child. Maybe he simply had no answers for his questions. Maybe he was waiting for something. At some point, the two officers and the Basho couple arrived. The officers had entered the room, cautiously assessing the kids' actions. Aizawa didn't blame them. This would be a great tactic to slip away again, if the kid weren't petrified of being bound once more. The couple, still in their night clothes, stayed by the door, concern washing over their features as the problem child spoke. When the boy had switched to the Deku persona, Aizawa had expected to be punched at some point. The Deku persona always lashed out at him when he didn't do what the boy wanted. Instead of being hit, however, Aizawa had his heart ripped out of his saint with the kid's defeated words. Why can't anybody just love me? The kid said, tears leaking down his pale face, hands trembling by his side. He never broke eye contact with Aizawa, but his eyes curled, as if wondering if that might be one of the problems he imagined Aizawa to have with him. How was he supposed to respond to that? How was he supposed to ease this kid's fears? What words were even capable? Aizawa stood from his seat in a graceful motion, impressive for his injuries. He stepped towards the boy and wrapped the one arm he could move around him. The kid flinched, but didn't stop the motion. The top of the kid's head barely reached his shoulders. He was so small, so fragile for someone who had proven capable of taking a severe beating. Aizawa held him close to his saint, almost wrapping his body around the kid, as if trying to protect him from whatever was hurting him. I did want to go get you, he whispered into the kid's hair. I would have spirited you away if I didn't think it would just cause more problems, he said. I didn't go get you because I love you. The state made good points, kid. This is dangerous. Being at UA, working towards being a hero. If they thought you were safer elsewhere. Aizawa took a breath, shaking his head. There is nothing wrong with you that would cause me to not want you. You're a brat, sure, but that just makes life a little more exciting, doesn't it? The boy in his arms stayed silent, as if deciding whether to believe his words or not. When was the last time I ever lied to you? Aizawa asked. At that, the boy's body relaxed, and Aizawa felt his shirt dampen as more tears leaked through. I don't want to go back, the brat said through muffled sobs. They aren't you. I'm not going back. Aizawa looked up at the Basho couple, still standing at the door. Every adult in the room seemed to sigh, not knowing what to do. Aizawa was about to say something more to the boy when he felt the kid start to go slack. Yamada was there almost instantly to catch the kid from falling. The boy was out cold, unable to be woken up, no matter how much the adults in the room tried. What happened? Is he hurt? The man, Shohei, asked. I don't know. Aizawa responded. His head was buzzing with concern for the kid. It was odd for him to have just lost consciousness. Kayama, did you? Of course not. The woman huffed. Yamada was kneeling on the ground, checking Izuku's vitals when Recovery Girl came into the room. Oh dear. It's always late-night trips with this one, isn't it? She said with a small tut. How the hell did she know to come? Did she have some sort of sixth sense for this type of thing? Nezu chuckled low at the curious glances sent towards the woman. I called her when he first arrived. I figured something might happen. Looks like my guess was correct. The principal cheered. Chio shouldered the group out of the way and inspected the kid. My, looks like exhaustion to me, the woman said. I don't suppose he's been having trouble sleeping? She asked the Basho couple. The woman nodded her head with a small sigh. Well, there is no need to worry. His body probably just gave out once he felt safe, Chio stated. Yamada, please take him to the infirmary. It looks like there is a discussion about to be had. No reason to have an unconscious boy be in the room for it. Yamada had laughed, breaking the tension, as he picked up the kid. No kidding. We wouldn't want to disturb the little listener. Or let the brat disturb us. Aizawa drawled, purposefully loosening his tense muscles. Does anyone fancy a cup of tea? Nezu asked as Yamada and Chio exited the room. Underscore 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 underscore. It was decided that Izuku would need to stay with the Basho family at night and on the weekends. During the school day, however, the couple would bring him to UA and allow him to continue classes, even though he wasn't technically a student any longer. Of course, there would be a major change to his schedule because of this. Izuku would no longer attend the hero course classes, at least while the Basho family had custody of the boy. A major downside to this plan was that one or both of the foster parents would need to be present on UA grounds while the kid was there. He was technically supposed to be on a sort of house arrest still, and needed to stay with his designated guardians. Neither parent minded, however. This fact, however, gave a time limit to having Izuku transferred back into U.S. custody, as both Bashos went back to work in 2 weeks. As soon as this happened, Izuku would have to go to work with one of them, instead of being allowed to attend his classes. Thus, a meeting with the council who had determined that Izuku should be removed from UA would need to be scheduled quickly. Nezu could only hope that the state wouldn't drag its feet as it had the past 2 weeks, now that he had the support of the police and the new foster family. Only one outcome would be accepted in the end, that was that Midoriya Izuku would go back under UA protection where he belonged. Izuku didn't wake up until after the last bell. His head hurt, and he felt shaky, but the anxiety that had been racking his body for the last 2 weeks had eased somewhat. Everything had seemed to drain out of him. Looking around the room, Izuku had a flash of déjà vu from the other times he'd woken up in the place. Good evening, dear, Recovery Girl said from her desk. Evening. Mei-chan. You've been out for almost 11 hours. I'm glad that you have finally gotten a full cycle of sleep, but your schedule is going to be very messed up if you don't try your strongest to fix it. Oh. Izuku looked around again, feeling a little dazed at the familiarity. Where is Aizawa-sensei? He'll be by later. I want to see him now. Izuku had whispered the sentence, trying not to sound petulant, but having the need to very request the man's presence. You will have to wait. Recovery Girl replied in her no-nonsense tone. Izuku kicked his feet over the side of the bed and stood, wobbling a little bit as the blood struggled to reach his brain for a moment. Lie back down, Midoriya-kun. You are sleep-deprived and your blood sugar is very low. I'm fine, Izuku said, moving over to the woman's desk to see what she was doing. I will not ask again. Lie down. Or perhaps you would like me to tell Aizawa how you refused to listen. Izuku grimaced, thinking about the scolding he would receive. He was probably already in trouble for having not slept or eaten much while with Rin-san and Heiatsun. Izuku paused in his thoughts, suddenly becoming much more aware of the situation. Am I in TT trouble? F4 running away? Recovery girl looked at him oddly. I am not the person you should be asking, she said finally. I am a healer, not your guardian. So long as you are healthy, I do not bother myself with other areas that are none of my business. What tea time is it? 17:45. Now go lay down, Midoriya-kun, and let me do my work, she said sternly. Izuku went back to the bed and sat for about 5 minutes before he got up again. This time, Recovery Girl sighed and turned in her chair to look at him. Aizawa said he'd be back at 19 o'clock. Wait patiently until then. In the meantime, would you like dinner? I'm sorry. I'm JJ just anxious. And I don't need anything. And not hungry. The woman scowled at him. When was the last time you ate a full meal? Izuku fidgeted in his spot by the bed. I ate some yesterday, he grumbled. Recovery Girl hummed low and then sighed. Come here, dearie. He did as asked, and she led him over to a scale. Izuku shuffled awkwardly away from it. He didn't want to see her disappointment when she saw that he lost weight. Hop on. And no thank you, he said meekly. If you have been eating, then this should be fine. According to the past few months, you should still be gaining about a pound a week, while your body still attempts to even itself out to a healthy weight. Izuku closed his mouth and slowly stepped onto the scale before he made things worse by lying to the woman. 11 pounds under your last recorded weight, she said once she had balanced the weights. Now, what would you like lunch rush to make for dinner? I'm really not hun. Midoriya-kun. The small woman huffed, eyes flashing with anger. I am your doctor. You will not get away with playing these games with me. Tell me what you want, or I will order for you. I promise it won't taste nearly as good as it could. Keikatsuden. Please, Izuku said as he backed away from the woman's irritated tone, half hiding himself in the covers of the hospital bed. He knew she was just doing what was best, but it aggravated him that the adults were always scolding him about food. It's not like he hadn't ever felt hungry before. Besides, if they didn't punish him, how else would he pay for the trouble he caused? Izuku sat mulling over things while he waited for his food. By the time it had arrived, he had become more and more irritated at the lack of information he had gotten upon waking. Where was Aizawa-sensei? Why hadn't Nezu appeared? Were Rin-san and Heiatsun coming to get him? Would he have to go back? If only Recovery Girl would answer his questions. If only he could get away to go find them out for himself. Halfway through his food, Recovery Girl went into the supply closet and Deku took his chance. He was out of the room in less than 3 seconds, slipping down the corridor and towards the school entrance. His first stop should probably be Nezu's office, but he was nervous that once the rat saw him, he would be sent back to his new foster home immediately. Thus, he opted not to take the chance. Besides, one of the teachers was bound to be in the dorm. It wasn't like he was sneaking around. He was actually trying to find someone. He wouldn't get in trouble for that, right? Deku peeked in every classroom on the way, soaking in the sights and smells of the school and committing the halls to memory. Who knew if he'd see the place after this? If he was sent back, he'd probably be under serious watch. It might be a while until he could sneak out again. And you could better F-seeking bet he would be running away again. Aizawa-sensei wanted him. No way would he sit still in some stranger's house when there was someone who actually cared waiting for him here. As he turned the corner towards the main entrance, he ran head first into someone, causing both to stumble back. Midoriya? Deku looked up, rubbing his aching nose as he took in the sight before him. Shinsu stood there, looking freshly showered. Shinsu, Deku said in surprise. What? Where the hell have you been? underscore 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 Shinsu had not been expecting to run into anyone in the vacant halls, least of all the one person he had been asking around for since the previous Tuesday. Yet, Midoriya had run headfirst into him, his face smacking into his shoulder as they both turned the same corner. What? Where the hell have you been? Shinsu asked, a large pit of swirling emotions running through his body. The boy hadn't gone to school the Tuesday following their training. At first, Shinsu had thought the kid might have gotten into the hero course full time. But by Wednesday, he had realized that Midoriya had simply not come to school. On Thursday, when Midoriya and he were supposed to train again, Aizawa-sensei had met with Shinsu after class. Midoriya was no longer a student at UA, at least for the time being. Aizawa-sensei offered to continue training him, however, since Midoriya had already set things up. When Shinsu had asked further questions, Aizawa-sensei had refused to answer, claiming that it was none of Shinsu's business. This past Monday, when Shinsu had trained with Aizawa-sensei again, he had even tried using his quirk to gain information from Yamada-sensei. But Aizawa-sensei had immediately put a stop to the blonde's answer with a solid shove to the man's arm. Then Shinsu had been scolded for the remaining 30 minutes before he was allowed to leave. Then, when he asked again today, Aizawa-sensei had made him do extra physical exercise. Shinsu was positive. It was both a form of punishment for what he had done 3 days previous and a punishment for the continued questions. Shinsu was completely dead on his feet by the end of it. Now, Shinsu was face to face with the boy. He could get his answers. He had better get answers. But that's all Midoriya got out before his eyes went blank, as Shinsu unconsciously flipped the switch of his quirk in his desperation for information. Midoriya immediately started struggling against the control, and Shinsu literally took a step back in surprise at his actions before dropping the control. The green-eyed boy fell to his knees, shaking slightly before looking up at Shinsu in confusion. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry, Shinsu said, kneeling down on the floor with the other boy, not knowing what to do to correct his mistake. Accident? Midoriya asked after taking a deep breath. Yes, I'm sorry. I've been practicing for the last 2 hours, so I slipped into it a lot easier. I'm sorry. It's okay. I'm okay. Shinsu looked the boy over once more before the questions started forming in his mind again. So, you are back at school? Shinsu said, prompting the other boy to answer his earlier question. It's complicated. You just disappeared. I know. At that, Midoriya looked up and smiled at him. Try not to hit him outside of physical exercise. You don't want to ruin your chance at the hero course. I don't have to hit someone to make them shut up, Shinsu said with a smirk, offering Midoriya a hand as he stood. The boy looked at it for a solid 10 seconds before taking the offering. The two stared at each other in silence, both unsure of what to say. Shinsu still had questions, but it was obvious that Midoriya would not be answering them. Shinsu stopped himself, thinking of a way to reword his question. You are coming back to school, he said, more as a demand. It was a little silly sounding, almost as if Shinsu was a 3-year-old telling their parent that yes, they are getting a cookie before dinner. Yet, it was the only way Shinsu could think to get his question across. I don't know. I hope so. I haven't heard anything so. But you're here. That means you must have been speaking with Nezu or something. Or something, the boy said, trailing off and refusing to make eye contact. They fell into another silence as they stood, staring at one another. Underscore 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 underscore. The problem child had left the infirmary. He left the infirmary without telling anyone where he was going or asking for permission. Did the kid have no concept of how troublesome his disappearing acts were to the adults around him? Did he not think about the possible consequences to his actions? Aizawa shook his head, mumbling curses under his breath as he walked the halls in search of the child. He was about to round a corner when he heard the kid and Shinsu. The other boy should have left a while ago. What was he doing? Aizawa was preparing himself to round the corner, injured or not. He could still put on an impressively threatening air. But at the words he was listening to, he stopped. How many foster homes? This is my 9th. Damn. I've only been in 4. But since my mom keeps coming back, they just send me to group homes now. No point getting parents attached. What's a group home like? Everyone always warned me to not be so bad that I get sent to one. It's not terrible. Just a lot of kids. Not enough adult supervision. In all honesty, it just depends on which one you get sent to. Are you with your mom or in care right now? Mom's just been sent back to prison. I've been in this home for 3 weeks now. Does it make you angry? Would you rather just have a permanent home, even if it's not your mom? My mom. She makes a lot of mistakes, but she's always been a good mom. I'd choose her over care any day. She just needs a chance to get out of our situation. Why is she in prison? Shinsu hesitated for a minute before something, or someone, shifted. His voice was much quieter when he spoke again. Gambling and drugs. One time in the past, it was money laundering. I'm not sure if that was included this time or not. It's all connected. She keeps getting caught up with this gang. It's strong where we live, if you aren't in a group. Every time she tries to get away, something bad happens. It's easier to just stay in the gang and try to lay low. What district? 11. South Side. Damn. Yeah. Don't you need to find Aizawa-sensei? We've been talking a while. At this point, he's more likely to find me first. Deku laughed. Hey, even if I don't come back to school, keep trying to get in the hero course. I really think you'll make a great hero. You are going to come back. Then you won't have to worry about me. I'm serious, Shinsu. I really messed up by running again. They could send me to juvie. If they don't, I'm sure it'll be really strict house arrest. Even if Yua wants me. The state is the one with all the control. And the state doesn't want me here. If only they'd let you stay until the sports festival. Then you could prove you're good enough. Deku snorted. The 3rd round is one-on-one battles. Not exactly my forte. Imagine if I had to go head-to-head with Kaken. Bakugo. The explosion kid. He'd destroy you. Definitely. Shame I don't have yours or Aizawa-sensei's quirk. He's good, but I still have the upper hand in quirkless sparing. When Aizawa noticed the conversation wasn't turning anywhere important, he finally rounded the corner to find the 2 boys sitting on the floor. The second he came into view, the boys scrambled up and slightly away. Shinsu, it's late. Why are you still here? We ran into each other, Aizawa-sensei. Deku said, eyes pleading with him not to scold Shinsu. Go home. Aizawa said firmly before turning to the green-eyed boy. You, come with me. Yes, sensei. The both said quietly. Deku waved a little as Shinsu walked in the opposing direction. Are you trying to get in more trouble? Aizawa growled as they walked towards Nezu's office. No. We are trying to figure out a plan for you. But if you keep disappearing, how will the state ever have confidence in Yua? I was just in the hall. I didn't leave campus. I wouldn't leave campus. I was looking for you. I'm aware. Chiyo informed me. It doesn't make a difference. Mochizuki-san was with me and Nezu when we went to get you. How do you think it looked to her that you had disappeared less than a day after you ran away from your home? I didn't run away from my home. I ran to my home. Aizawa couldn't even get frustrated at the statement, as his Saint warmed. Underscore 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 underscore. Oh, so nice of you to join us, Midoriya-kun. Nezu said as Aizawa and Deku entered the room. He was speaking with a friend he found in the halls. Aizawa said, motioning the boy to a chair. The kid had tensed the moment he had entered the room, eyes never leaving Mochizuki-san and the Basho couple, all of whom sat in their own chairs. After a little hesitation, the kid finally sat, albeit as far from the other three as he could. We were just discussing the next step, said Nezu. There seems to be a lot of discussions happening without my input, Deku said, eyeing the principal. I'm not leaving, he added, looking at the other three adults. Not unless you force me, kicking and screaming out those gates. Don't be a brat, problem child. Aizawa huffed. We are trying to work with you here, but you'll have to meet us in the middle. Deku closed his mouth and waited, looking towards Nezu to fill him in. We have come to the conclusion that you should continue spending your days at UA. You aren't officially a student any longer, but since the Bashos have liberty over your homeschooling education, they can supplement your studies in any way they see fit. Thus, you will resume classes here at UA. Wait, what? I'm not a student, but I'm still taking classes. How does that work? It usually doesn't, Nezu replied. But you are a special case. There are some changes to your schedule, though. Mochizuki-san piped up. Deku looked over to her, waiting. No hero course studies, she said firmly. Aizawa watched as Deku bristled before his eyes, seeming to grow a few inches taller. He stepped in before the brat could say or do anything. Considering the other option is not attending UA at all, I'd say this is a compromise. Deku backed down, looking over his shoulder at Aizawa, who was leaning against the back wall. But I earned my spot in your class, he said. Yes, Aizawa answered. Why can't I? Deku was cut off when Mochizuki-san cleared her throat. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm sure you are strong and capable, but… She shifted, knowing that her words were about to piss the boy off. You're quirkless. You have no natural defense against the other students. You shouldn't have been allowed in the hero course to begin with. Why does it matter? Came a surprisingly calm voice. I've shown that I can keep up with the others. By this point, isn't that enough? You were the only student seriously injured at the USG, Mochizuki-san said. Obviously, you are not on par with your peers. At this, Aizawa stepped forward, a raging fire in his ch saying, If I may? You weren't there, Mochizuki-san. Please do not comment on my student's ability in comparison to the other students, if you were not available to witness what actually happened. Midoriya did better than some of his peers in handling the villains. His injuries were no worse than mine, and I'm a pro. The villains he fought were not all low-level like the ones his classmates faced. Mochizuki-san's eyes went wide as Aizawa spoke. She stood when he finished bringing her height up to meet his. If I may be blunt, you look like you've been hit by a truck. Is that not more reason to keep him out of the hero course? I disagree with you on the hero course, but I was more focused on how you have continuously commented that he is worth less than his peers with my previous statement. Aizawa growled out. Mochizuki-san fumbled, stuttering for a bit before she took a breath. I have not said he was worth less than his peers. Yes, you have, Deku said, drawing the woman's attention. You've said it a few times. That because I don't have a quirk, I can't keep up. As if having a quirk were the only thing in the way of you letting me join the hero course. I think you are taking her statements the wrong way. Midoriya-kun, Heiatsun said. Be realistic. A quirk makes a big difference in these matters. So you're saying that so long as I had a quirk, it wouldn't be a problem. Any quirk? Well, yes, Heiatsun agreed. That's quirkist, and incredibly idiotic. Deku growled. Aizawa and Nezu both nodded their heads in agreement, but didn't speak. What if I had an ability that was useless for hero work? Like the ability to change the color of my hair, or the ability to make food taste like anything I want, or the ability of enhanced charisma. That's different. Is it? Tell me the truth. If the word quirkless was never written into my file, would we be having this conversation? So long as I can do something, you guys would be fine, right? There was an awkward silence that stretched for a few seconds too long before Deku spoke again. Because, if I really needed to, they sell hair dye at any market in town. I used to eat out of the garbage, so I can pretty much stomach any food necessary, if need be regardless of taste. And the charisma I can work on. Midoriya-kun, you aren't understanding. Rinnesan spoke. I'm not? Rinnesan, how much have you been told about my past? Do you know about Deku? Yes. I am aware of your vigilantism. I've been fighting villains for years. I can hold my own. With a little more training, I could stand against pros. But you and the state are holding me back because what? Don't have special magic powers. Don't patronize me, it just pisses me off. The room fell into silence again. Either way, for now, you will be in 1C every morning and on Monday and Friday afternoons. The other afternoons you will spend in the support course. Nezu said cheerfully. Why can't I do the support course every afternoon? Deku asked. You can still get basic physical training this way. Besides, Powerloader can't handle you and Hatsum together more than 3 days a week anyway. Aizawa drawled. Deku smirked and didn't ask any further questions on the topic. Now after school, you will continue your remedial lessons with Yamada and your after-school activities with Aizawa. However, you are required to be in the Basho household from 19 o'clock 6 o'clock every night and morning. Deku stiffened at that. Why? Why can't I just stay here? We don't have custody of you, brat, Aizawa said. Deku turned to look at the hero. But I don't want to go back. I want you, not them. You can't always get what you want. This is a compromise until we can get a meeting with the courts. It will also be necessary for you to stay at the Basho residence on weekends. Nezu continued. Deku looked as if he wanted to say something against that as well, but he stopped himself, opting to cross his arms over his sent instead. Aizawa sighed at the action and spoke once more. Stop being a petulant brat. Heiatsun and Rinnesan are trying to work with you. They are going out of their way to accommodate what you want. They will be driving you back and forth, staying at the school during the day so that the alarms on your cuffs don't go off, providing you meals and a place to sleep. Be thankful. He scolded. Deku's face dropped, and he glanced over at the couple. You should also apologize for your actions the past 2 weeks as well, Aizawa said. Deku shifted uncomfortably before bowing his head some. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be rude just then. And I'm sorry I moved all your furniture and messed with all the electronics in the house. Deku looked back to Aizawa for approval when he finished. The black-haired man sighed before nodding at the boy. Therapy will continue after lunch, Tuesday through Thursday, and a 2-hour session after school on Friday, since you will be missing 2 sessions during the week. Deku groaned, but didn't fight the decision. Any questions? No. The boy mumbled. Good. Now, I think it's time you headed home. You have school tomorrow, after all. Underscore 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 Deku had made it to the gates before he couldn't take another step. It had been getting stronger and stronger to walk the closer they neared the exit. When he stopped, Rinnesan looked back at him in question. I can't. I'm not going. I'm staying here, he said, backing up a pace, right into Aizawa-sensei's CHC. I can't go. You all are just lying to me. You all just want me back in that house. You're going to lock the doors and keep me there so I can't come back. Deku turned to look at his teacher. Don't make me go. Don't let them take me. You'll just disappear again. I know you will. Something bad will happen or it was suddenly much stronger to breathe. No one has lied to you, Izuku. Aizawa soothed. You don't know that. You can't read minds. I'm going to go, and then I'll never see you again. This is all just a trick. If I exit the gates, they'll shut and never open back up. I'll be all alone. I can't leave. I can't. Please don't make me, sensei. Please. Aizawa-sensei's eyes softened, and he moved Deku's hair back from his face. You are going to come back tomorrow. If you don't, I'll go get you. Deku shook his head. They'll have moved me by then. They'll have taken me away. You won't be able to find me. I can't go. I can't. Midwari-kun, Rinison started. The curly-haired boy flinched strong at her voice, causing her to stop, face dropping in concern. Have they done anything to make you think these things? Aizawa asked, already knowing the answer. No. But it'll happen. They'll take me away from you. They won't bring me BB back. It's okay to be afraid, Aizawa said. But you can't let it override rationality, kid. Give your fear a place, and then state the facts and move on. Izuku stayed quiet as he clung onto Aizawa's shirt for what felt like the 100th time that day. What's the fact, kid? Have the Bashos ever hurt you? No. Have they ever lied to you? I don't think so. Have they ever been unreasonable in their requests? Thoughts of having to put the kitchen back filtered through his mind, but Izuku shook it off. The request wasn't unreasonable. Deku just didn't tell them why it had been important. If he had, the couple might have kept things as they were. Not on purpose, he finally stated. Aizawa sighed at the answer, but continued. If you really wanted, you could just run away again, right? Yais, Izuku said hesitantly. Then there isn't a problem. These people are kind and good. If you don't show up, I'll come get you myself. And if I can't find you, you can just run away. The boy was shaking, head bowed as tears spilled from his eyes. But something bad is going to happen. I can't explain it. I just know. You have to go with them, Izuku. Nothing bad will happen. I'm not even on patrol tonight. Your mind is just playing tricks on you. Nothing is going to happen. Underscore 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 in the end. It took over an hour to coax Izuku into the car. Aizawa was exhausted as he plopped into bed beside his husband. You all right, Sho? Fine. Aizawa grunted as he rolled over, away from the knowing gaze of the blonde. Hisashi leaned over, rubbing circles into the black-haired man's back. No, you're not. Aizawa ignored the man, closing his eyes. You don't have to talk, but I'm right here. I care about him too. At that, Aizawa did roll over, searching Yamada's gaze for something. Something. Do you lie to me to calm me down? Yamada seemed taken aback by this. Well, sometimes. Of course I do. Do you really care about Izuku? Do you want me to care about him? Yamada's eyes stranged at the words, and the comforting hand on Aizawa's side drew back as Yamada sat up. What kind of question is that? Of course I care about Izuku. Of course I want you to care about him too. Yamada swung his feet over the side of the bed, standing and moving to the opposite side of the room, as he often did when angry. What changed? You warned me against getting too close at first. What changed? What, Sho? Why are you getting so upset? Aizawa asked, moving to sit up. Yamada's entire body relaxed at the question. Where did this come from? Do you think that I don't love Izuku? Have I done anything that seemed unsupportive? No, Zashi, that's not it. Then, what? I know what I said a while back upset you. But just because I want to protect you doesn't mean that I love Izuku any less. I've accepted this bond the two of you have made, even if it worries me at times. So it does still bother you. Of course it does. Yamada raised his voice, accidentally activating his quirk. He stopped, closing his mouth and taking a breath before continuing. What just happened? Izuku being taken away. Your reaction. It all just solidified my worry for the both of you. My reaction? I haven't been any different. Aizawa Shota, I've known you for more than half your life. Do you really think I can't tell when you're in pain? When you're struggling? These past 2 weeks have been hell for you. And you didn't even reach out for help. You just kept all your emotions inside like you always do. Aizawa opened his mouth to fight back, but stopped. He knew Hisashi was right. You took it out on your students, on the other teachers, on Izuku. At that, Aizawa jolted. I didn't take anything out on Izuku. You're wrong, Yamada yelled back. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to say anything because it worked out, but, Shota, he's been through hell. He's been abandoned by every person who was supposed to love him. He thought that you abandoned him. Yet he ran back to you. Back to the one person who he trusts, and the first thing out of your mouth is that you are upset with him. What the hell is wrong with you? Did you want me to lie? You know full well that kid would have picked up on it. That's not the point. There are ways around it. I know you are strict by nature, but read the situation. Show. He was terrified. He thought you hated him. For a split moment, you crushed that boy. What was I supposed to say then? Aizawa asked, anger causing his voice to come out in a low hiss. Yamada frowned at him. When he asked if you were angry, he wasn't actually asking about your feelings. He was asking if you wanted him. That child's mind goes to the extremes. Don't you know that by now? Yamada sighed and shook his head. It's fine that you said yes. However, it should have been followed immediately by a but. Yes, I'm angry, but not at you. I'm angry at your actions. Or yes, but I still care for you. Instead. Yamada shook his head. Aizawa didn't respond to the man as a sick feeling entered his stomach. He felt nauseous and his head started to pound. In the past, I was just worried about you, how the kid would affect you. But now, I let myself get close to the kid because I knew you couldn't stop. If he is going to be a staple in your life, then he sure as hell will be one in mine too. I love Izuku. He's mine just as much as he is yours. I don't mind that he prefers you because his comfort and growth are my main concerns. Yamada stopped, allowing silence to wash over the room. But, Aizawa prompted when Yamada didn't continue. But, Yamada said. Now, I'm worried how you are affecting him. Yamada's eyes glassed over with tears. And I feel like shit because of it. Because I know you are trying. Because I know how much you care. But I've been in similar situations as the kid. I know what it's like to be ripped away from everything you know and pushed into an unfamiliar situation. I know what it feels like to think that no one could ever possibly love you. I understand why he acted out at the new home. I understand why he ran back here. I knew what was on his mind the second I saw him last night. Aizawa shifted on the bed, watching his husband pace back and forth along the far wall. Don't you ever hint that I might not care for him? Yamada said, voice harsh. Don't you ever suggest that I don't take into account every action I make in reference to that child, to you? The two fell into silence again, as Yamada continued his pacing. What should I do, Zashi? Aizawa asked after a while, looking down at his lap, one hand clenched tightly in the sheets. Don't be an ass, for starters. Yamada replied. Don't make false promises. He continued. You can't keep telling him that you won't leave, Shota. It's not true. You're a pro-hero. Anything can happen. He's in the foster system. They've already proven that they can take him away at the drop of the hat. Instead, tell him that you care. Tell him he's loved. Tell him that nothing he does will ever cause you to leave. Tell him he's worth more than a FC King trash bag. A tear escaped down Yamada's face, and he quickly rubbed it away. Did I mess this up? Aizawa asked, voice low, timid. No, I don't think you did. Like I said, it all worked out in the end. Yamada said. But don't be surprised if things are still difficult. This type of healing, it doesn't happen overnight. Don't be surprised if a few days, weeks, months, or even years from now, he turns to you with questioning eyes and wonders if you actually love him. Don't be surprised when he can't trust those words, no matter how many times you say them. You can't make that mistake again, Sho. You can't. Once is fine. But if you do it more, he'll never believe you. Aizawa nodded his head, hand fidgeting with the hem of his shirt restlessly. He always felt as if his soul was held open for Yamada to see. He could never hide his small fidgets and insecurities from this man. What happened at the gate, Shota? He thought I'd disappear, or die, or leave. He thought the Basshos were going to take him somewhere far where he couldn't reach me. He kept saying something bad would happen. He said he could feel it in his bones. He said he just knew. It was like an impending sense of doom washed over him, and he couldn't figure out it wasn't reality. What did you say? I just reassured him. I said I'd go get him if he didn't come to school tomorrow. Would you? What? Aizawa asked, looking shocked. If the Basho couple refused to let him go to school, would you actually go and get him? Take him out of their care? Essentially kidnap him. Aizawa wanted to say yes, but hesitated. Of course he wouldn't actually do something like that. He wasn't stupid. But, at the time, when he was talking to the kid, he had believed that he would. Don't say that again if the answer is no. And the answer should be no, Shota. That would be a really stupid thing to do. He's living in limbo right now. Don't give him false hope if there is any chance of things not happening the way you promise. Okay, Aizawa said quietly. I'm sorry, Zashi. Yamada walked up to the bed and sat on the edge, pulling Aizawa forward. That kid loves you, Sho, Yamada said, with a hug. I know. Yamada backed away a little and looked into his husband's eyes. How far are you prepared to go? Once again, Aizawa's first instinct was to say, as far as it takes to keep him safe and happy, but bit that down. I don't know. Yamada nodded. That's okay. It's okay to not know. At least you're being honest now. Yamada looked down at where he held Aizawa's good hand. We should get some sleep. Aizawa nodded, lying down. Yamada hesitated, turning sad eyes on his husband. I love you, but I'm still really mad at you. Aizawa propped himself back up on his good arm. Yamada shifted uncomfortably on the side of the bed. I'm going to a different room to sleep. I need space. Isn't that okay? Aizawa hesitated, a lump forming in his throat. I know you need me. But I have to take care of myself first, and Yamada looked away. Just come back tomorrow. If you need to, we can keep talking. Aizawa said, swallowing his pain. Okay, I will. Yamada turned to his husband, head bowing to kiss the top of his head. I really do love you, Sho. I love you too, Zashi. With that, Yamada left the room. For one of the first times in his life, Aizawa understood what it felt like to be left by someone not because of death, but because they simply didn't want to be with you. For the first time, Aizawa realized what Izuku probably felt every time someone walked out of a room. And it hurt. More than any injury he had received, it hurt. Like someone had died, only worse. Because it was your fault they had gone away. Only, he was lucky. He had the reassurance that his husband would be back. He had the confidence to say that he was loved, and that his husband wasn't lying. He was lucky to have never been willingly left before. FCK. If only Hisashi and Izuku had been so lucky too. The following morning, as the car pulled up to the gates of Ua, Izuku felt a little stupid for his reaction the previous night. He was sure that they wouldn't let him return though. Could this be a fluke? All right, Midoriya-kun. We are both going to be in the teacher's lounge today if you need us. Rin-san said with a smile on her face. I just need you to check in around lunch and before therapy after school, all right? Izuku nodded, and then everyone got out of the car. They were really early. Izuku didn't even think that Shinsu would be here yet. But Izuku wasn't able to sleep last night. By 5 o'clock, he had simply decided to get ready for the day. By 5:30, Heiatsun had woken and decided to prepare for the day too. By 6:30, the entire house had had breakfast and was ready to go, even though they didn't need to be at the school for over an hour. Either way, Rin-san had followed Izuku to the car and hopped into the driver's seat. It was a little odd to step up to the gates, as if he were a normal student, and even more odd when the light on the gate turned green, allowing him entrance. His student ID had never permitted the gates to open before. Do you think I can go see Chato before school? Izuku asked. Who is Chato? Heiatsun questioned. She's my cat. I had to leave her behind. I found her when she was really little. Heiatsun and Rin-san shared a look. You'd have to ask a staff member, Midoriya-kun. Izuku nodded his head, walking up towards the front doors of the main building. The only person awake and available at this time would be Samenta-sensei, and he'd be doing his morning exercise in Gym 3. Underscore 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 Izuku had been allowed to see the cat, much to his excitement. Chato had already grown in the 2 weeks he hadn't seen her, and it hurt his heart to know that he had missed it. Rinneson and Hayatsun both like cats as well, and cooed over the little fluff that had immediately snuggled close to Izuku when she saw him. The tiny cat hadn't forgotten him. She wasn't even mad at him for not coming home. She just purred as she rubbed her body against his legs and mewed happily when he got out a string to play with her. It was a glorious first part of the morning. After that, his morning only went downhill. Upon entering the classroom about 10 minutes from the bell, all heads turned towards him. "Oh, so you aren't dead," Anzisen sneered. "Or kicked out, apparently. What'd you do? Take a vacation or something? To high and mighty to attend school like you're supposed to?" Izuku opted to ignore him as he went to his seat. Shinsu was at his desk, head in his arms as per usual. An eye peered open in greeting before closing again, awaiting the start of class. When Cementos began calling roll once class had started, Anzai had raised his hand. "Cementos-sensei, I thought that if you missed too much school, Yua would fail you. Why is Midoriya even here if he can't pass the year anymore?" Cementos scolded the boy and told him to mind his own business before starting the lesson. In the switch between teachers, Anzai had managed to get a few more people to join in. Once more, Izuku ignored them. At lunch, when Yokoyama-san got up to leave, Izuku positioned himself away from her, just in case she tried to pull the same stunt she had pulled at the start of the year. He would not be forced to speak about this. It was his own, personal business. He didn't seem to have to worry, though, as Shinsu was glaring her down, causing her to give them both a wide berth. Underscore 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 underscore. Everything would have seemed normal if Anzai didn't keep bringing up Midoriya's extended absence. Shinsu was aching to punch that smirk off the boy's face, but knew better than to even try. They didn't know Midoriya's story. They didn't know he had moved foster homes and been taken out of Yua. But it still irritated Shinsu that they picked on the boy anyway. Don't be in a hole unless you know the full story. What if his parent had died or something? Then Anzai would just look like a complete douche for picking on the freckled boy. "I have to go check in with the staff. Grab me some food, and I'll meet you back here. It's nice outside today. Let's eat at the tables on the side of the lawn." Midoriya nodded and ran off. When they both finally settled at the table outdoors, the boy across from him merely played with his food yet again. "You need to eat. Don't you have hero training after lunch?" Midoriya jolted, cautious eyes rising to meet Shinsu's. "I've been removed from the hero course. The state, and my new fosters, think it's too dangerous." Shinsu set his chopsticks down, observing the other boys' reactions. "So what's your schedule?" "I'm mostly general studies now. I can participate in the support course 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday. But that's iffy too. Powerloader Sensei might only be able to handle both me and Hatsune-san twice a week in the end. It depends. Anzai's going to be a terror this afternoon, then," Shinsu commented. Midoriya nodded. "You should still eat. If we have class together, especially on Fridays, we can spar. I don't want you to kick my ass with less force just because you're hungry. I wouldn't learn as much," Shinsu said, self-deprecating humor inching into his words. "If a teacher is there, we could probably do some quirk training too," the other boy said, taking a bite of food. "I still feel a little bad that I didn't keep my word." "It's fine. Aizawa-sensei and Yamada-sensei have been teaching me. To be honest, I think we should save quirk training for after school. We still don't know how you'll respond to repeated or long control." Midoriya nodded again, the smile not leaving his face as he scooped up another bite. Underscore 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 underscore. "The hell are you doing here?" Anzai sneered when he saw Izuku sitting at his desk after lunch. "Not going to your precious hero training?" Izuku looked down at his desk, face flushing as he spoke. I'm not in the hero course anymore. The silence that overtook the room was deafening. For a solid minute, the class just stared at the small boy in the corner of the room. Only Shinsu gave him the privacy of not looking in his direction, knowing full well how uncomfortable the green-eyed boy felt when stared at. They finally kick you out? Anzai asked, his voice less gleeful than Izuku had originally thought it would be. Or did you run away from it? Izuku didn't answer. HMPH. Guess it doesn't matter anyway, so long as you've learned your place. Deku's fists clenched, and he grit his teeth so as not to say anything. In my opinion, they shouldn't even let you in UA at all. How much longer till they kick you out, or you run from this school for good? Anzai taunted. Deku stood, anger boiling over in his as he glared at the other student. I have just as much right to be here as any of you, he growled. Anzai merely laughed and waved him off as Cementos entered the room, unknowingly stopping a fight before one even occurred. Deku sat back in his chair with an angry huff, hands clenching on top of his desk, whilst Cementos-sensei prepared for afternoon class. As you all know, the sports festival is 3 weeks away. Thus, we will be continuing to train those of you who wish to partake. As I've said previously. Yeah, like every day for the past 2 weeks, the boy behind Deku mumbled. If you are able to make the ranking of 3rd place or higher, you will have the opportunity to join the hero course. So please, if you are interested, give it your all. As the school motto goes, plus ultra. Cementos paused before looking around the room. Please split into your groups. Study hall will be held in 1D today, sparring in Gym 7 and quirk training in Gym 8. With that, everyone stood and dispersed. Are you staying to study or do you want to spar? Shinsu asked, gathering his things. Spar, definitely spar, Deku replied with a grin. Gym 7 was one of the larger, emptier gyms in the school. Someone had lined the floor with blue mats, awaiting the students' arrival. There weren't many students there, only 14 out of the 3 classes, but Deku didn't mind. He liked to practice around as few people as possible. Most students go to quirk training, Shinsu said. You know, I almost thought about going to that one. Deku replied, a sly grin on high face. Shinsu snorted in response. I'd actually be interested in how that would go down. Imagine Anzai's face if you had the opportunity to fight, and then take down someone with a combat-based quirk. I don't think I have to. He's here. Deku sighed, looking at the boy who had just entered. Damn, I'd hoped he would go to quirk training. It would have been nice, Deku said, trailing off when his eyes located a bright yellow sleeping bag against one wall. Aizawa-sensei. He stated out loud, drawing Shinsu's attention. Underscore 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 underscore. After about 5 minutes of the students trickling in, Aizawa groaned and removed himself from the comfortable confines of his sleeping bag. Eyeing the room, he found Shinsu and his problem child among the group. Why the hell isn't problem child working on the 2 weeks of schoolwork he missed? Well, it was Friday. Aizawa couldn't very well tell him to go do the work. Friday was the student's choice. Find a partner to start. Then we'll switch a little later. Everyone here knows the basics already, so you are free to spar. No quirks as per usual. Aizawa drawled, sounding bored. Problem Child and Shinsu paired off with one another, and Aizawa traveled over to that group first, knowing they would need immediate guidance. Why aren't you in study hall, brat? You have 2 weeks to catch up on. Aizawa questioned. The kid, at least, had the decency to look away slightly ashamed. I wouldn't be able to focus, so I'll work to catch up tonight. Aizawa sighed, but didn't fight the boy on it. All right, you two. You know the drill. Midoriya, half speed. If he starts being able to catch you, you can up the ante. If it's too easy, limit yourself. You never know what will be injured when fighting. Yes, sensei. Both boys replied together before facing off. Aizawa walked the room from there, watching the students intently, correcting forms and making suggestions. In all honesty, the general studies kids had come a long way. After about 20 minutes, a loud thud rang out into the room, followed by a cry and hurried apologies. Aizawa snapped his head over to the problem child and Shinsu, who were both on the ground. Izuku was shaking and Shinsu looked at him with wide, guilty eyes. "What happened?" Aizawa asked as he strode over. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Really, Midoriya?" the violet-haired boy said, being careful not to touch the other. Izuku had his eyes closed as he took a deep breath. When he opened his eyes, the shaking stopped. The freckled child looked up at Aizawa, a small, pitiful grin on his face. "Accident, sensei. I kind of goaded him on. I didn't think he was that frustrated." Shinsu stopped his words and looked down at the ground, unable to make eye contact with the teacher. "Shinsu, what happened?" Aizawa asked. "I used my quirk, sensei," the boy murmured. "Why?" "Accident." "How did the accident occur, Shinsu?" The boy looked to the side before finally deciding to just speak. "I was frustrated at not landing a hit, and we were talking while sparring, and I didn't even think about the question." And Midoriya responded. Aizawa groaned. "These two. I didn't realize I had control until I was already flipping him. I snapped out of it mid-throw. It was a little jarring." Deku said, rubbing the back of his head slowly. "I'm sorry," Shinsu said again. "Are you sure you're okay? You went really pale." "I'm fine. Just shook me a little. I wasn't expecting it." Aizawa sighed. "You need to be more cautious, Shinsu. We'll practice on control next Monday." The violet-haired boy nodded. "Time to switch. Choose new partners." Aizawa called out before turning back to his brat. "Don't injure the other students. None of them are at your level. Most of them aren't even at Shinsu's." Then he walked off to ease the transition. Underscore 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 underscore. Of course, Anzai would walk up to him next. Of course, Izuku's tormentor would want the chance to taunt the boy more. But Anzai had never seen Deku fight, and Deku refused to let him win. This was sparring class. This was permissible combat, and Deku would not lose. "I saw Shinsu take you down. It was pretty amusing to watch. You almost looked like you were going to cry." Anzai laughed as the two got into position. "No wonder they kicked you out of the hero course. You can't even win against that weakling." "Shinsu is not weak. He's learning incredibly quickly," Deku said back, holding in his anger. "Please. I kick his ass every time we spar. He's nothing." "Obviously you haven't sparred recently," Deku said back. He knew that Shinsu had sparred and failed miserably against Anzai. Apparently, the boy was specially trained in some form of martial arts and had schooled most of the class during training in the previous weeks. "Shall we begin?" Anzai sneered, getting into his starting stance. Deku nodded, falling into stance as well. Anzai moved first, throwing a jab at Deku's stomach, but the boy blocked the hit, grabbing onto Anzai's wrist and moving behind him, twisting Anzai's arm back. The boy moved with a twist, using a foot to attempt to trip Deku. Deku allowed himself to be tripped, dragging Anzai down by the arms still held in his hand. The boy fell with Deku's weight, while the green-eyed boy repositioned himself to have the upper hand once they were both onto the floor. Anzai attempted to roll as he landed, but Deku stopped him, straddling his waist once Anzai was on his stomach and pulling his arm back. One hand found Anzai's hair and Deku pulled it back to keep the boy from moving again. Anzai squirmed under Deku, attempting to get out of the freckled child's grasp, but to no avail. "Give," Deku commanded. The other boy struggled more before relaxing and tapping on the mat twice with his free hand. Deku backed off and held out a hand to help Anzai off. The boy smacked it away, growling at Deku before getting back into position. "So you aren't as useless as I thought. Who trained you?" Just some free classes in my old neighborhood, Deku replied. Anzai glared before getting back into position. This time, the boy eyed him warily instead of attacking right away. You just going to stand there? Anzai asked. Didn't want to attack before you were ready, Deku replied with a smirk. Anzai attacked as Deku spoke, clearly using the conversation as a distraction. Deku was prepared, however, and dodged his leg sweep. This fight took a little over 2 minutes before Deku was able to knock the boy back and out of bounds. At this, Anzai got into stance again and attacked as soon as Deku did the same. The boy had clearly been trained in karate, most likely at least a brown belt. He was good but stiff in his practice. Deku was able to use his multiple styles and techniques to pinpoint the weaknesses in the singular style. This time lasted 5 minutes. With each fight, Anzai adapted, able to stay up for longer amounts of time. After a few more rounds, Anzai was very clearly becoming frustrated. When Deku had moved off of Anzai after yet another pin, the boy striked out. Deku hadn't been prepared for the sudden attack, comfortably expecting all sparring done at UA to be fair by now. Yet, Anzai had lashed out, grabbing Deku around the middle and slamming him into the ground. A knee dug into Deku's back as Anzai grabbed both his wrists and held them behind the boy's back. Deku snarled at the hold, bucking under Anzai's weight, but Anzai didn't let up. Not so high and mighty now, are you? The knee in his back dug in further and Deku groaned from the pain of the hold. You can't do sit. You may be good at sparring, but I can still take you down with ease, the boy hissed. You don't even have a quirk. You don't stand a chance in this school. Anzai leaned down to whisper in his ear. Might as well give up. You're just dragging everyone else down. Deku slammed his head back into Anzai's face, rolling when the boy's grip loosened. In an instant, Deku had pinned Anzai down with more force than was probably necessary. For someone who wants to be a hero, you use some pretty disgusting tactics. This is sparring, Anzai. Surprise attacks aren't permitted, Deku hissed, moving off the boy. You want to fight me? You want to prove your theory that I'm not deserving of you? Now's your chance. I'm not holding back anymore. Deku's eyes flashed dangerously as his adrenaline spiked. Every sense in his body now registered Anzai as a threat. The boy stood, rubbing at his nose. Time to switch partners, Aizawa-sensei's called. The look that Anzai and Deku shared, however, made it very clear that neither would back down. Both took their starting stance once more, eyeing each other. Deku was not playing around anymore. He would not cut his speed. He would not go easy on the person in front of him. His body was humming with the fight or flight response, and he sure as hell was going to fight. Anzai was a threat. Anzai was an enemy. Midoriya, Anzai, switch partners, Aizawa-sensei called, walking up to them. He was tense. He could tell something was happening. Anzai moved first once again. Good. Deku didn't want to get in trouble for making the first move. As the boy moved in close, Deku ducked and moved to the left, out of Anzai's line of sight. He was moving at his top speed, much faster than he had used with Anzai thus far. In a matter of seconds, Deku had the boy pinned beneath him. It was the quickest spar thus far. When he backed away, Anzai yelled out, eyes blazing. He stood and went to attack Deku again, but the green-eyed child was prepared. He didn't have to block or dodge anything though as Aizawa-sensei's capture weapon sprang out, wrapping around Anzai and pulling him back from Deku. I said to switch partners, Aizawa-sensei ground out. Midoriya, he snapped, drawing Deku's gaze. Watch yourself. I told you to go easy on the class. This seemed to snap Deku out of his threat mindset. I'm sorry, Aizawa-sensei. I'll hold back, he said. This only seemed to piss Anzai off. What do you mean hold back? He yelled. You can't have been. I could strongly keep up. That's impossible. Seems like he does have a reason to have been accepted in the hero course, Shinsu said under his breath as he passed by. Anzai snarled. You're a F-seeking nobody. You got kicked out, right? No quirkless, useless. Anzai didn't get to finish his sentence as the capture weapon tightened around his torso and drew the boy towards Aizawa-sensei. That is enough, the man growled. I have heard one-to-many comments from you in the past weeks. If you have a problem with Midoriya or any other students, deal with it on your own time. Is that understood? Yes, Aizawa-sensei. Anzai stuttered. Aizawa let the boy go with a growl. Different partners. Don't make me repeat myself again. Underscore 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 Aizawa-sensei made him stay after class. Shinsu waved goodbye, glancing at the teacher nervously before leaving the classroom. Deku knew that Aizawa was aware of his therapy. If he still needed to check up with Heiatsun and Rinnesan first, then he really needed to get going. He didn't understand why Aizawa-sensei was holding him back, but he stayed anyway. It wasn't as if he actually wanted to leave the man's side. If he could be his shadow the entire day, he would. It was strong to be away from the man now. Every bone in his body ached to have Aizawa in his sight. If the underground hero wasn't near, anxiety sat heavily in Deku's ch. Yet, it was still odd that the man kept him after. Was he in trouble for what happened with Anzai? Am I in trouble? Are you angry BB because of what happened with Anzai-san? Aizawa paused, looking at him with a strange expression on his face. No, I'm not angry or upset at all. You aren't in trouble. Aizawa-sensei took a breath, looking around the room. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. I know that last night was difficult for you. Rinnesan said you didn't sleep. Izuku jolted back slightly. Oh, I'm fine. I'm sorry I didn't sleep. I tried to. Honest, I did. I know, kid. It probably wasn't easy after sleeping all day yesterday either. Come on, we'll go check in with your foster parents, and then you need to go see Inuisan. Can't I skip the session today? Can't I just stay with you? No. Therapy is important. It doesn't feel important, Izuku grumbled. Underscore 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 therapy, in fact, did absolutely nothing for Izuku, but make him feel worse. Inuisan had insisted on talking about the move to the new home of which Izuku was still struggling to adjust into. In the end, Deku had fallen into a silent stare-off with the therapist before his anger at having to talk exploded. Luckily, Inuisan knew better than to keep the windows locked in his office whenever Deku was coming, lest they be broken. By the time Inuisan had calmed the boy down enough for Deku to come down from the tree, the session was mostly over. Then, it was time to leave. Rinnesan and Heiatsun tried to distract him on the walk towards the car, asking him what he would like for dinner, and if he had a lot of homework. Yet, with every step towards the gate, Izuku felt a greater amount of panic rise in his ch. He didn't even make it as far as the night previous before he stopped in his place and sat on the walkway, unmoving. Aizawa-sensei, who he'd said goodbye to before leaving the main building, arrived relatively quickly once Izuku started having trouble breathing. Underscore 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 underscore. I can't. Please. I want to stay. I want to stay here. I want to stay with you. Izuku cried, latching on to the front of Aizawa's shirt. Don't make me go. You have to, kid. What if they don't bring me back? Izuku sobbed. They brought you back today, didn't they? But it's the weekend. They have time to change their minds now. They have 2 whole days to take me away somewhere. Please let me stay. Izuku. They aren't just going to take you away. But what if they do? Aizawa was at a loss. He didn't know what to say to the kid. This had just happened the night before. Why was it repeating? Midoriya-kun, we promise we aren't going to take you away. You will come back to Yua on Monday, just as planned. Yuri lying, Izuku screamed at the soft-spoken man. Or you see could be. You could be. I see can't trust you. You're trying TTTO take me away. You don't want me to be WW with Aizawa sensei. Izuku. You need to try and be rational. I am, Izuku cried. It's happened before. It'll happen again. The boy pulled back from his CH. You are angry. You are. I'm sorry for what happened with Anzai. I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. I promise. Please don't send me away. I'll do all MMY school work and I'll wash all dishes right away. I won't talk be back or pull anything over on the other teachers. I'll be GG good. Little listener. Yamada's voice called out, low and calm. Aizawa looked behind him to find his husband walking up to the group. Izuku stopped his pleading to peer at the new arrival. Yamada-sensei, please let me stay. He hiccuped. I'll DDO English all weekend. I won't complain or even take breaks. Yamada smiled faintly before squatting down and holding out a hand for Izuku. The teenager grasped onto it, but didn't move far from Aizawa. It's not up to me or Aizawa if you can stay or not. Do you understand that? The blonde asked. Izuku nodded. It's not really up to the Bashos either. They have to keep you over the weekend, at least for right now. But why? Why can't they stay in the dorm TTTO? Things just don't work that way, little listener. I don't want to go. I'm not going. I'm not leaving. If I leave, then. What do you think will happen? Yamada coaxed. They'll take me away. Yamada turned to Hayatsun and Rinesen. Will you take him away from your house? No. Both said together. You heard them, little listener. Says something bad will happen. You and Aizawa sensei. And Yua. It'll all disappear. Everyone will die. There will be nothing left to come back to. Yamada seemed to think. What do you think are the odds for everything being destroyed? Izuku paused, blinking at the blonde. Do buildings usually just disappear? Is it a common occurrence? And no. Well, then I think it's safe to assume that probably won't happen. Even if it did, you being here would not make much difference, would it? Unless you can stop buildings from being destroyed with your force of will. Yamada smiled with the last sentence. Aizawa sensei will die. You will die. I can positively say that at least during the weekend, Aizawa is not going to be in any more danger than a normal civilian. He's still injured, so the most dangerous task he will be doing is sorting out paperwork. And I'm not patrolling either. I have a sports festival to plan. Yamada said. Izuku fell quiet, searching Yamada's face. I don't want to be alone again. He whispered, shrinking in on himself, as if he had just revealed a terrible secret. Good thing Hayatsun and Rinesen are going to be with you. Yamada said. They are strangers. I'm still alone. What about the cat? Rinesen said, speaking for the first time during this breakdown. What if Chato came home with us? Izuku looked back at the woman, surprise on his face. If you bring Chato, you won't feel alone, right? Hayatsun asked. I'm not allowed TTO bring animals along with me TTTO new homes. Usually not, but we don't mind. So long as whoever is caring for her right now is okay with it. Rinesen said. I think that's a great idea, Yamada chirped. I can have ectoplasm get her and a few or her things. He's in the dorms right now. But all her stuff. If they aren't busy, maybe some of the teachers can come by and drop extra stuff off at the house over the weekend. Hayatsun said. Izuku looked at him wittied. Whoever comes can have dinner with us. Rinesen added. If it helps, someone can see me Sunday too. Hayatsun suggested, glancing at his wife as he spoke. She nodded her head in agreement. Really? Yes, really. Izuku looked back towards Aizawa. You really aren't mad? I'm not mad. You really still want me? Yes, kid. I still want you. I just have to go. Yes. Izuku fidgeted, rubbing at his wrists a little as he worked out his thoughts. And you will be here when I get back? Yes, kid. Will you come over the weekend? Aizawa looked to Yamada, who nodded his head. If that is okay with everyone. I'll come see you on the weekend. Both days? Yeah, Izuku. Both days. With that, Izuku backed away from the two teachers and stood. Okay, I want Chato first. Be before I get in the CCCC car. I'll get ectoplasm to gather some stuff for her and bring her here. Yamada said, pulling out his phone.